When the crowd saw the scene, they understood what was going on. It looked like the cultivator from the empty divine realm intended to test out Futian's abilities. Now, all the cultivators from various worlds knew of Futian's existence. Even if they had never seen him before, they had at least heard of him from word of mouth. Many people were discussing him even now. He was the top monstrous figure in the original realm, a young ruler, and the successor of the inheritance of a few great emperors. The cultivator from the empty divine realm and Futian stood at different locations. They were very far away from each other. However, for figures at their level, this distance amounted to nothing. The frenzy storm swept towards the region where Futian was, but none of the buildings were destroyed. This caused many people to be impressed by the sturdiness of the buildings around. Right at this moment, the cultivator from the empty divine realm flew up into the sky. His whole body shone with brilliant golden divine light. Xiao Mu from the devil world looked in his direction. This cultivator from the empty divine realm also had 8th tier cultivation like Xiao Mu. However, it was most likely very hard for him to pose any threat to Futian. Golden divine light enveloped the space. The illusory figure of an ancient god appeared. It raised its arm and instantly sent out a punch. Disregarding the long distance, the golden fist tore the space apart and blasted towards Futian. This attack was similar to the one Futian had experienced before. It seemed like many cultivators from the empty mountain were proficient in this kind of divine technique. Futian extended his arm and pointed a finger in the air. An indestructible sword actually formed, and it directly collided with the golden fist. A terrifying destructive storm erupted, expanding towards the surrounding area. Impressive, many people exclaimed upon seeing Futian's attack. Futian comprehended the body refinement techniques from the divine corpse of Shunjia, the great emperor. The body refinement techniques allowed Futian to forge the divine body of the great path. His flesh could now become the way and unleash unparalleled might. His casual pointing contained both the strength of his flesh and the power of swordsmanship. When the two powers combined, a powerful force burst forth. The other party was also aware that his attack couldn't possibly shake Futian. Otherwise, Futian would not be qualified for his title as the top monstrous figure of the original realm. A gigantic illusory figure suddenly appeared and loomed over the region. Even the sky was tainted gold as golden beams of light shone across the land. In the sky above, a frightening golden storm was brewing. It was menacing. All the cultivators in this region raised their heads to look up. Then, countless arms appeared behind the ancient god. The arms veiled the heavens. All the arms attacked at once. In an instant, the entire sky was covered with golden fists. All the fists charged towards Futian, seemingly wanting to overwhelm him. The divine fists rained down from the sky. Everything was distorted due to the punches. The terrifying punches shattered the space and smashed down towards Futian, intending to bury him in them. The attack was absolutely domineering. Futian raised his head and swept a glance at the fists. The space of the great path froze, and rumbling sounds thundered. Doors of space materialized all around Futian. The doors engulfed the golden punches which rained down on him. With Futian's body as the center, the doors of space formed a unique space. It was a miniature world. However, even with the defense, the frenzy fist will traverse across the space, causing the miniature world to shake violently. The doors showed signs of cracking. Futian's expression was calm. He cast a glance in the distance. An alarming sword will instantly erupted from his divine body of the great path. He pointed a finger at the sky. A divine sword immediately traversed the space and crushed the incoming fists. The divine sword shot up to the high heavens. It was a gigantic starry divine sword, yet it also contained the menacing sword will of fleeting. All the cultivators turned their attention to Futian. Futian stood at his spot quietly and wielded the divine sword in his hand. The scene was magnificent. He swung his arm, and instantly, the starry divine sword slashed down. It cleaved the space and shattered the countless fists. The sword then plowed towards the cultivator from the empty divine realm. The cultivator from the empty divine realm had an indifferent expression. The golden illusory figure of the god, which was coalesced by the cultivator, extended both its arms and made a grab. When the sword descended, the illusory figure grabbed it with both its hands. Shocking rumbling sounds thundered. The sword continued to slash downwards, causing cracks to form on the pair of golden arms. Bang! With a loud bang, the starry divine sword which spanned across the sky crumbled into pieces. However, the arms of the golden illusory figure of the god were also chopped off. Futian didn't stop attacking. He pointed a finger upwards, and immediately, a diagram formed in the sky. It was a yin-yang diagram. The diagram kept expanding. The sun and the moon seemed to be up in the sky at the same time, while the stars twinkled mysteriously. The power of yin and the solar power, two polar opposite powers, appeared concurrently in the yin-yang diagram. The powers gave birth to sword will that caused the cultivator from the empty divine realm to feel threatened even from a distance. Renhuang Yi is undoubtedly the top monstrous figure in the original realm. I'm impressed by your ability, said the 8th tier Renhuang from across the space. This was his first time speaking to Futian. Prior to this, he attacked Futian without saying anything first. It seemed like he wanted to take revenge on Futian for meddling in the affairs of the empty divine realm before this. The outcome of our battle has yet to be decided. It's still too early to speak of admiration, Futian said indifferently. As he said this, the floating yin-yang diagram radiated a shocking halo of the swords of catastrophe. The halo outshone the sun. Just like how the other party intended to overwhelm him with fist will, Futian returned the favor by having the divine swords of catastrophe rain down on him. The divine swords flooded the space and charged towards the 8th tier cultivator. The cultivator took a step forward. Loud rumbling sounds reverberated. The gigantic golden illusory figure of the god coalesced. The radiance behind the god shone far and wide. It formed a spatial barrier, which covered the area where the cultivator was. Swoosh! Countless divine swords rained down. The swords infused with the power of yin and the solar power landed on the light shroud. Slowly, cracks began to form on it, and pieces of the light shroud were being chipped off. Soon, the defensive light shroud formed by the illusory figure of the god was torn apart and disintegrated. The divine swords slashed downwards with a momentum that could destroy everything in their path. Right at this moment, a cultivator from Empty Mountain raised his hand. A golden geomantic compass appeared in the sky. It kept expanding as it dazzled with colorful lights. When the divine swords descended, they were sucked into the geomantic compass. Then, they disappeared without a trace. It was as though the swords had been engulfed by the compass. The yin-yang diagram floated high in the sky, while the spatial geomantic compass guarded down below. The two faced each other. When Futian saw this scene, he waved his hand, and the yin-yang diagram immediately disappeared. He looked into the distance and said, as expected of the cultivators from Empty Mountain, I'm impressed by your ability. Futian said the same line that the other party had said to him before. However, the subtext was significantly different. Futian was clearly mocking the other party. After all, the cultivator from Empty Mountain attacked Futian first. Yet in the end, he needed to seek aid from another top cultivator in order to block off Futian's attack. The cultivator's action was slightly disgraceful. From this battle, all the cultivators from various worlds had a better understanding of Futian's abilities. He was very strong. Even an 8th tier cultivator from Empty Mountain was no match to him. Futian didn't even move from his spot. He merely stood at his original spot and sent out attacks from across the space. Yet, his attacks were already unbearable for the 8th tier cultivator. Futian's combat ability was indeed astonishing. The cultivator from Empty Mountain was stronger than most of the cultivators. This meant that even among the 8th tier Renhuangs, only very few of them could defeat Futian. All the cultivators paid attention to this battle. Moreover, they were all exceptional figures from various top forces. Many top figures were ablaze with fighting will as they looked at Futian. They were eager to test out how strong he was and whether or not they could be a match for him. Chapter 23:23 The Lost Clan. Futian sensed the battle intent, which wreathed around him. However, he ignored it. All those who were here were top figures from various worlds. It was normal for them to want to contend with the most monstrous figures from other worlds. Yi Futian's arrival caused them to focus their attention on him. Even without him around, the rest of them would still contend among themselves. Yi Futian's will expanded towards the unusual region ahead. The region was packed with buildings that were sturdy and simple in design. The buildings were cone-shaped and were spread out across various locations. The total space occupied by the buildings was wide. The buildings seemed to be surrounding a main building, which emanated a mysterious aura. Unfortunately, the power around formed a barrier, sealing off the main building. No one could probe any further with their will. With his will, Yi Futian could see that many cultivators were dwelling in the region. Their auras were formidable. Besides that, their auras were somewhat similar, indicating that they most likely cultivated the same techniques. They gave off an otherworldly vibe. Yi Futian and his group had just arrived, but some of the other cultivators had been here for a long time. Yet, they remained outside and had not entered the region. From the looks of it, it was not that they had no intention of entering the region, but rather, their entries were blocked by the people inside. It was intriguing. Had the cultivators inside the region stopped the cultivators from various worlds from entering? The people gathered here were all top figures from various worlds. Every one of them was a terrifying existence. Some of them had even undergone divine tribulations of the Great Path. How did the locals manage to block them from advancing into the region? Yi Futian was not the only one who thought of this problem. All the cultivators from the Heavenly Mandate Academy realized it too. Through transmitted thoughts, Renhuang Chan told Yi Futian, the cultivators inside are not simple. They might be very strong. Yi Futian nodded in agreement. There was definitely a reason behind every abnormal situation. The scenario before their eyes now was clearly abnormal. In terms of combat abilities, even the cultivators of the Z-Way segmentum back then could not hold off the lineups that were here today. The former would not even risk holding off the latter, either. However, right now, the cultivators had indeed been blocked from entering the region. This was obviously abnormal. Let's find a place to rest in Shinny City for now. We'll wait and see how things go, suggested Renhuang Chun. The top figures from various worlds had all settled down at different places. It was unwise for Yi Futian and his group to stick their heads out. It was better for them to observe the situation and then figure out exactly what kind of place the unusual region was. All right, replied Yi Futian, nodding. The group left where they were and found a simple tavern to rest. They were hoping to gather some information about the unusual region here. After all, they rushed here in a hurry. They made their way here right after they found out the center of the Shinny continent was here. Therefore, they knew nothing about the unusual region. There were quite a lot of people drinking in the tavern. Occasionally, some locals would look at Yi Futian and his group. Even though the locals were curious, none of them asked Yi Futian anything. All of them appeared calm. Many people had gathered in the city recently. They knew where these visitors were from, so they got used to seeing new faces. All the cultivators in the Shinny continent had high receptivity. On the other hand, Yi Futian discovered something astonishing to him. Along his way here, he had realized that the cultivation planes of the cultivators in this continent were generally higher than that of the outside world. Moreover, the cultivators in this continent had exceptional temperaments. This observation held true, especially after they arrived at Shinny City. In this ordinary tavern alone, there were a few Renwangs. Furthermore, Yi Futian actually acutely sensed a hint of animosity from a few locals. He had no idea why they were hostile to his presence. More and more people slowly gathered in the tavern. The people who came all had rather high cultivation planes. There were even some top-tier Renwangs around. They sat down in the tavern quietly as though they weren't paying attention to the other guests. However, Yi Futian could vaguely sense that these people had gathered here because of him and his group. Renhuang Chun frowned. As he lowered his head to take a sip from his cup, he said to Yi Futian through transmitted thoughts, Palace Lord, aside from people in this tavern, there seem to be more and more people heading towards where we are. Yi Futian expanded his will, and it covered a large area. In his consciousness, many images flashed past. There were a lot of locals who appeared around those cultivators from the top forces. On top of that, more and more people were gradually making their way towards this region. There was a constant stream of renhuangs traversing across the sky and landing in the city. What are they here for? Yi Futian asked through transmitted thoughts. Should I go check things out? Renhuang Chuan suggested. Just when Yi Futian was about to say yes, a group of people entered the tavern. They were acquaintances of Yi Futian. Among them were Zhou Muhuang, vice chief of the Shangqing Domain Chief's Manor, and his sister, Zhou Lingxi. Yi Futian also spotted the chief of the Domain Chief's Manor. He had come here personally. Clearly, the chief was also here in the original realm due to the changes that had occurred to it. The chief of the Shangqing Domain Chief's Manor approached Yi Futian. Yi Futian raised his head and looked at the other party. He greeted, "Greetings, chief." Yi Futian sounded polite, but he didn't stand up to salute the chief. He merely nodded his head. Under normal circumstances, even though Yi Futian's current status was extraordinary, he would still stand up and bow to the chiefs since he was their junior. However, Yi Futian didn't have a good impression of the chief of the Shangqing Domain Chief's Manor due to past incidents. Therefore, he didn't do so. The other party noticed this difference in detail too, but he didn't show any signs of dissatisfaction due to Yi Futian's current status. Instead, Chief Zhou said, I did not expect Renhuang Yi to attain such a great achievement in such a short time after our meeting at the Shangqing Domain. Congratulations. Chief Zhou is too polite. Have a seat, Yi Futian responded. Since the other party showed signs of becoming friends with him, he would naturally treat them courteously. Chief Zhou and his group sat down. Zhou Lingxi said, When I first met Renhuang Yi, I was already certain that you're an exceptional figure, but you much faster than I had imagined. Now, I pale in significance compared to you. Princess Lingxi has praised me too highly, Yi Futian said with a smile. May I know what orders you have for me? My words can't be counted as an order for you. Yi Futian, you're the ruler of the original realm now, so you don't have to be so polite with me, Chief Zhou said bluntly. I'm sure you are aware of the situation here. Those people are here because of us. They are here to protect that place, the center of this shunny continent and the dwelling place of the Lost Clan. The Lost Clan? Yi Futian revealed an intrigued expression. The name of the clan was indeed extraordinary. Yes, the Lost Clan. Rumor has it that they called themselves the Lost Clan after they were abandoned by the gods. Since then, they have been on a journey of defying the gods, Chief Zhou explained. Before your arrival, my group was already here. The Lost Clan is very strong, far stronger than what we expected. The cultivators from various worlds were shocked by their abilities. Hence, nobody dares to venture into their region now. The cultivators of the Lost Clan have frightening willpower. It might be due to the environment of this continent. Chapter 23-24, Rejection. Yi Futian listened quietly. He had already thought about this point. They should be one of the last groups of people to arrive. The top forces here had dispersed to different locations after they arrived. They had not ventured into the unusual region. Clearly, something had occurred before for the cultivators here not to dare to venture into the region. If that was the case, he roughly guessed the reason why the domain chief of the Shangqing Domain Chief's Manor had come looking for him. Chief Zhou said, According to my intelligence, after the Shunny continent was abandoned, it has been traversing through the void all this while, floating among the various destructive storms. Over countless years, it experienced countless extinction-level calamities. However, it has lasted to this day. The main contributor for this is the Lost Clan. He continued explaining to Yi Futian, the Lost Clan is not a family clan, but rather is formed from the members of the entire Shunny continent. Anyone who joins the Lost Clan will offer up their lives. They will take an oath with their spiritual soul to protect this continent. The Lost Clan appears to be a family clan on the surface, but it is forged from the combined will of the entire Shunny continent. It is indestructible. It is precisely because of them that we can witness everything before us now. From the other party's words, Yi Futian immediately understood the reason for the animosity from the surrounding cultivators. At the same time, he also understood why the various cultivators had all rushed over here. It turned out that this was the center of their faith, the place that the members of this entire continent wanted to protect. From the looks of it, the Lost Clan had protected the Shunny continent through countless catastrophes and calamities. In the end, The continent had made its way to the original realm. From this perspective, the members of the Lost Clan were admirable. Futian felt a faint sense of respect well up inside of him. Such temperament was noteworthy. It was just like how he wanted to protect the original realm. Their belief was far stronger than his own. It was because the Shuni continent was always on the brink of destruction. As the continent traversed through the void, the Lost Clan had no sense of security and could be destroyed at any moment. Such dire circumstances formed an extraordinary clan. It similarly forged a group of exceptional cultivators. It was no surprise then that he discovered that their average cultivation planes were higher than those of any other continent that he had been to, including the lands of the Divine Prefecture. The people here were, on average, very powerful. Futian also noticed something else. On this vast Shuni continent, the population was not very large and seemed rather scarce. Only here in Shuni City was the population denser. Across the eons, the harsh environment must have already performed natural selection on the Shuni continent again and again. Hence, there was the Shuni continent and the Lost Clan that they saw today. Futian understood this in his mind, but still did not speak up. He was waiting for the other party to bring it up. After Chief Zhou finished introducing all of this, only then did he say to Futian, "There is a barrier in the region of the Lost Clan that seals away a building. Prior to this, we wanted to enter that place. However, we encountered obstacles. Inside, there seems to be a secret zone. From within it, many extremely powerful cultivators emerged and deterred the various top forces from entering, hence, resulting in the situation you see before you." "You want to get inside?" asked Futian. "Of course, it is not just me. Cultivators from the various worlds all want to enter and take a look around. Is the Lost Clan hiding some mysterious secrets in there? Is it related to the great emperors of old? If we can get inside, we will certainly come across huge discoveries," continued Chief Zhou. "Hence, I have come looking for you. I actually want to form an alliance with you here." The chief of the Shangqing Domain Chief's manor wanted to ally with Futian. Naturally, it was not because of Futian's cultivation plane, but rather the powers behind him as well as the astonishing talent that Futian himself displayed. After all, Futian had proven himself so many times before. There seemed to be no relic that possessed the inheritance of the great emperors that had not been claimed by him. The scene before them was somewhat surreal. When Futian came to the Shangqing Domain Chief's manor back then, the chief had not considered him worthy of his attention. Back then, he merely wanted Zhou Muhuang and Zhou Lingxi to win over Futian, recruit him under the chief's control, and make Futian his underling. However, now, he wanted to ally with Futian. Futian looked at Chief Zhou, but he shook his head. He seemed to have decided to reject the other party's offer. This scene caused Chief Zhou to reveal a strange look. He took the initiative to extend Futian an invitation, but the other party had actually rejected his request for an alliance. The expression of Zhou Muhuang, who was beside him, also changed slightly. His gaze suddenly turned sharp as he looked at Futian. Even though Futian's status was extraordinary, their standing was also high. The Shangqing Domain Chief's manor was the most powerful force in the Shangqing Domain. They had proactively come to ally, but Futian had actually turned them down completely. "Chief, every time a relic appears, I also offend the various major forces. This time, cultivators from the various worlds have come here, including the forces of the human realm, the devil world, and the ancient god clan from the Divine Prefecture. Even with the power of the Heavenly Mandate Academy, I don't believe that I can deal with all of them. Can Chief Zhou handle them?" asked Futian. This caused Chief Zhou to frown. Futian continued, "If we can't obtain anything, there is no meaning to forming an alliance. If we truly manage to obtain rewards, will you stand with the Heavenly Mandate Academy to face the animosity of the various forces together? I believe that you know the answer yourself." To put it bluntly, the Shangqing Domain Chief's manor sought an alliance just so that they could rely on his power to obtain rewards. However, when the Heavenly Mandate Academy truly faced danger, and if they went against the superpowers, the Shangqing Domain Chief's manor would most likely not dare to offend them. The so-called alliance would naturally be meaningless. When he heard Futian's words, Chief Zhou's expression turned sullen. He appeared somewhat displeased. Yi Futian exposing this point was actually a slap in the face for him. Although what Yi Futian said was true, from his attitude, it was clear that Yi Futian didn't want to deal with him. If that is the case, farewell then, said Chief Zhou. He then led the cultivators of the domain chief's manor away with a somewhat displeased expression. Zhou Lingxi looked back and glanced at Yi Futian. However, she did not say anything but followed the group and left. After the cultivators of the Shangqing domain chief's manor left, Emperor Nan said, "Such a direct rejection will probably offend others." "This isn't the first time anyway," said Yi Futian nonchalantly. This was not the first time the Shangqing domain chief's manor was displeased with him. During the struggle over the sacred remains of Shunjia, the great emperor, the domain chief's manor had already been very dissatisfied with him. Back then, Zhou Muhuang had even headed over to Four Corner Village to demand the village be handed over to him. It could be said that both sides were not on good terms, to begin with. Since that was the case, Yi Futian did not need to fake politeness and accept the other party's alliance. Responded Emperor Nan as he nodded his head. He did not mind anyway. Yi Futian had also offended other forces aside from the Shangqing domain chief's manor. In the previous struggles over the relics, he had offended countless top forces. However, his offenses towards them could not be considered huge vendettas, merely fights over personal interests. Will swept over them. It seemed that the arrival of Chief Zhou just now had drawn the attention of some people. They were spying on the situation over here. Yi Futian did not pay it much heed. However, he was somewhat curious about the Lost Clan. Chapter 23-25. Entering the Lost Clan. Yi Futian waited quietly in the tavern. Everyone seemed calm enough. They, too, were probably just waiting. While they were chatting, the entire tavern suddenly quieted down. Yi Futian and the others were alarmed when they saw the majority of the cultivators in the tavern get up from their seats. This collective action surprised Yi Futian and the others more than just a little. He didn't expect so many of the cultivators in the tavern were loyal to the Lost Clan. Outside the tavern, there was a group of people walking in this direction. Suddenly, all those who stood up greeted the cultivators who were coming this way. Their respect was clearly coming from their hearts, not simply a matter of formality. This sight was actually quite touching for those who witnessed it. This group of men came in front of Yi Futian and the others. When Yi Futian looked up at them, he already knew these were the cultivators from the Lost Clan. He knew it when they came. He just didn't know why they came to him. In his assessment of these cultivators from the Lost Clan, he could see all of them were powerful in their cultivation with high realms. They weren't clad in lavish clothes, but were dressed rather plainly. Some of them even had tattered clothing simply draped on their shoulders, revealing bronze-toned skin underneath. Even in such unremarkable attire, nothing could conceal their extraordinary temperament. Just standing there, they felt quite solid, like towering mountains. There was not a strong sense of authority, but everyone could detect a strong sense of will and belief. It was a unique temperament from within. Yi Futian had known enough powerful cultivators to know that not many people were like this. But all the cultivators in front of him were like this. Aside from that, they exuded a great feeling of power just by standing there. They were like some indestructible existence. "We are cultivators from the Lost Clan, here to welcome Emperor Yi and cultivators from Heavenly Mandate Academy, Ziwei Segmentum, as well as Four Corner Village." The person leading the group greeted Yi Futian and the others. His hands were clasped together, somewhat resembling Buddhist etiquette, but it was a little different. However, his sincerity was obviously from the heart, as he treated the whole affair with great importance. What piqued Yi Futian's interest was that these people had actually discovered their identities, knew where they were from, and who they were. It seemed that after the Sheni continent appeared in the original realm, not only did the cultivators of the original realm come to explore it, but the cultivators from the Lost Clan had also gone to the original realm to explore on their own, hence, their knowledge of them. Faced with such courtesy from the other party, Yi Futian got up and returned their gesture. "Elder is overly polite. If our abrupt visit has disturbed the Lost Clan, we ask for your forgiveness." "No disturbance to speak of. We have been floating in the void world for many years and have never seen anyone from the outside. Now that there are visitors from everywhere, please know that the Lost Clan is not inhospitable. The Lost Clan is more than happy to make friends with Emperor Yi and all of you." That's why we came here to invite Emperor Yi to be our guest, so that you may get to know a bit more about us, the man continued. He caught Yi Futian and the others by surprise. The Lost Clan had invited him to be their guest. Weren't they worried about letting wolves into the chicken coops, so to speak? Anyone could tell that the cultivators from the original realm and the other major worlds had unfriendly intentions, and each came with their own designs in mind. Yi Futian looked at the man and asked, "Did the elder mean to invite us to the Lost Clan for a visit?" "Yes, exactly. But because we don't know you, we want to first invite Emperor Yi to visit the Lost Clan so that you may get to know us." The voice of the other man was calm and full of energy. Many cultivators around him looked at Yi Futian. Now that the Lost Clan had invited many people, would Yi Futian agree to go? However, the cultivators from the Heavenly Mandate Academy frowned and were a little unsure. They had already known that the Lost Clan was a highly unusual clan whose strength may be great beyond their imagination. Perhaps even the Heavenly Mandate Academy itself might not be enough to contend with them, let alone Yi Futian on his own. Once Yi Futian entered the Lost Clan, he would be under the control of the other party. If the Lost Clan had some malevolent intent, he would end up in a very undesirable situation. You don't know much about us, and we don't know much about the Lost Clan either. It may not be suitable for him to travel by himself. Fongai stepped forward. Yi Futian's safety was of great importance to them. This was their number one concern. In that case, we don't have to invite only Emperor Yi. Even if every one of you joins him in the Lost Clan, it's all the same to us. The man bowed slightly and replied. His mannerism was still courteous, but there was an immensely strong confidence in his tone. What he didn't say with his words was that if the Lost Clan had any bad intentions toward them, the outcome would be the same no matter how many of them attended, so there was no need to invite just Yi Futian. The cultivators of the Heavenly Mandate Academy looked at them in silence, but Yi Futian smiled and said, "I believe in you, Elder, and I am willing to go with you for a visit." He had been curious about the Lost Clan before. Now that the Lost Clan had taken the initiative to invite him, he was willing to go along and take a look. "Thank you, Emperor Yi, for your understanding." The cultivator from the Lost Clan continued. "In that case, Emperor Yi, please come with me." "Elder, please lead the way," Yi Futian replied. Immediately the cultivator from the Lost Clan led the way in front, while Yi Futian followed behind, and cultivators from Heavenly Mandate Academy walked out of the tavern to see them off. As they spread their divine consciousness far and wide, they discovered that other cultivators, who had also been invited, were heading in the direction of the Lost Clan. It seemed that they had not invited just the Heavenly Mandate Academy, but other principalities had been invited as well. No wonder they invited just one person. If they had invited everyone, they might encounter some issues. After a few moments, Yi Futian and the others came to the outskirt of the Lost Clan, and Yi Futian discovered that cultivators were coming from different directions. These people had spread their divine consciousness far and wide and discovered each other's existence. "Emperor Yi, please enter." The man continued as Yi Futian stepped into the Lost Clan. Seeing that other principalities were also invited, Yi Futian understood that the Lost Clan couldn't possibly mean them any harm. Otherwise, they would offend everyone at once, and no matter how powerful the Lost Clan was, they could not possibly endure collective hostilities from every principality. So, what was their intention? Inside, the Lost Clan was massive, with a sense of great solemnity. The buildings within its bounds were simple and scattered, but they felt weighty, just like the cultivators from the Lost Clan. Several cultivators began coming out of a simple room, looking at Yi Futian and other cultivators from different principalities. Suddenly, Yi Futian felt a heavy pressure. This pressure was not intended for him, but was a signature specific to the cultivators of the Lost Clan. It was a substantial presence that made others feel its heft. Very soon, the cultivators who entered the Lost Clan from different locations gathered together. Every one of them was an exceptional character in their own right. Some were strong while some were weaker, all at various realms. Some had survived the divine tribulation of the Great Path, and some were heirs of lofty statuses from top principalities. These cultivators were also here by invitation of the Lost Clan. They now appeared in front of that forbidden building. Yi Futian looked at the forbidden place in front. The space seemed heavily distorted. This was the center of the entire Lost Clan, and all the buildings seemed to surround the forbidden place in front of him. Obviously, this was a place of importance for the Lost Clan. Other cultivators knew better. They had seen many top cultivators from the Lost Clan who came out of this place before. "Everyone, please." The cultivators of the Lost Clan stepped forward to guide them. Suddenly, a door swung open in the twisted space in front of them. Futian and the other cultivators stepped into its threshold, and it felt as if they were traveling through a tunnel of time and space, entering another world. There was a terrifying spatial power of the Great Path here. They could even feel many places inside, with distorted spaces as well. It was so deep ahead that no end could be seen. And here, their divine consciousness seemed to be distorted as well, unable to cover as great of a distance as they used to before, so they had to resort to using only their eyesight. However, as far as their eyes could see, there were many greatly capable cultivators with their own terrifying aura, accompanied by monstrous cultivations. Just the sight from their eyes alone gave the others invisible coercion. It was as those eyes held a frightening brilliance. "What is this place?" asked a man who appeared no more than 30 and had a most unusual temperament. This man was a talent from the human realm. His appearance seemed typical, but he possessed a pleasant presence. "The true core of the Lost Clan. Didn't you come here to unearth the secrets of the Lost Clan?" "The true meaning of the Lost Clan lies here," said an elder from the Lost Clan who had led them here. "We can talk while we walk." As he was explaining, he continued to lead the way and took everyone deeper inside. At the same time, he said, Shini continent was a land abandoned by the gods in ancient times. For countless years, it had been exiled in the void, having never known which way to go or what would happen tomorrow. It was like facing a night that would never end. According to legends, the Shini continent was not like how it is now in that bygone era. It was perhaps many times larger than today, truly a grand world in every sense of the word. However, in the many years of exile, it had long since fallen apart and broke into different pieces. More than that, many of the cultivators on the continent perished. It was many years ago, a time we referred to as the Dark Ages. The old man of the Lost Clan continued slowly, until later, an original ancestor, the one who created the Lost Clan, came about and banded everyone together in order to fight against the perils of the unknown and realm of death. As the number one cultivator of the continent took command over the cultivators on the continent, they fought against the Dark Ages. From then on, the Shini continent entered the era of the Lost Clan. Futian and the others listened quietly, no one interrupting. The old man was telling them the origin of the Lost Clan, and all of them were interested in this mysterious clan. Furthermore, this ancestor of the Lost Clan must have been a magnificent figure. No one knew what kind of realm he was in, what happened to him, or if he had fallen. After establishing the Lost Clan, extraordinary cultivators of the continent voluntarily joined the clan and worked together to guard Shini continent, so that in a very short time, the Lost Clan became the undisputed premier principality of this land and the place where everyone held their faith. All those who wanted to join the clan must swear that they are willing to sacrifice everything, including their lives, to protect the continent. The ancestor of the Lost Clan fulfilled that oath with his own life, as did the rulers in the following generations and its top figures. They dedicated their lives to ensure the continued existence of the Lost Clan. Generation upon generation, it was precisely this belief that was guarding the Shini continent. Today, the Shini continent has finally left the endless darkness and come to the original realm. Before, we thought that this was just another area in the land of the exiles. But then we learned that Shini continent might no longer need to experience the darkness as it once did. Futian was quite moved when he heard these words. Did generations of leaders really use their own lives to protect the Shini continent? Moreover, the fact that they were top cultivators made it even more remarkable. Such sacrifice required firm conviction and fearless courage to achieve. If so, then everything that happened outside could be explained. Knowing that the Lost Clan was under threat, cultivators from all parts of the continent had rushed to the same place. If there were a war, those cultivators who came would probably do all they can to fight. This was some amazing faith. Only those who had faced desperation year after year, living in constant darkness, would have such belief, thinking that only if everyone had the same goal to protect the continent as a whole could they survive. If it weren't for those men who persisted in this kind of belief, perhaps Shuni continent wouldn't be here today. The endeavor of your ancestors, generation upon generation, was indeed admirable, someone remarked, and everyone seemed to be in awe. No matter what purpose drove them here, hearing this history incited respect from every one of them. They continued moving forward. The inside seemed extremely deep, with no end in sight. Many caves and recesses appeared on both sides, and it seemed that there was a bright divine light inside. The old man said, after our ancestors created the Lost Clan, they opened up this area here, using them as the last pure land for the Lost Clan. If the Shuni continent is broken apart, the people can still seek shelter and continue their existence in exile. The caves in here were left by generations of cultivators from the Lost Clan and are engraved with their cultivation methods. Later generations had left their deeds inside these caves so that even if Shuni continent was broken apart, the people who made it here could still cultivate inside these caves and continued their exile in the endless darkness until the arrival of dawn. This was the worst-case scenario. Everyone nodded slightly as they started to believe in what the old man was saying. Looking at everything inside, it was true that it appeared as the last refuge of a band of desperate folks. Its existence ensured the continuation of the Shuni continent. It was a holy land built by the sages before them, who were planning for the worst. Some of the caves in here are now occupied by cultivators who were actively cultivating. The cultivation methods created by our ancestors have been passed down from generation to generation, and they have all been engraved in there, still teaching the later generations, as they inherited the will of our ancestors while continuing moving forward until this point, where we have come to the original realm and met you all. The old man continued, this is the general situation of the Lost Clan. You are welcome to walk around and take a look. The Shuni continent has drifted to the original realm, and naturally, we don't want to be enemies with any of you. We hope to make your acquaintances and become part of this world. Chapter 23-27, Secret Zone Paradise. After hearing this, everyone nodded, but someone suddenly asked bluntly, can we enter the Secret Zone Paradise to observe the enlightenment? Immediately, the space hushed, perhaps too drastically. The attention of all the cultivators fastened on the old man from the Lost Clan, waiting to see his reaction. This was equivalent to asking whether or not they could use the Secret Zone Paradise handed down from the ancestors of the Lost Clan for their own cultivation. This was also the true purpose for all the various principalities to converge here. A continent appeared out of nowhere in the original realm with countless cultivators on it. No matter how one looked at this event, it was hard for anyone not to be excited by it. Inevitably, an association with divine relic was made with the appearance of this continent. Although the words of divine relic were never mentioned, none of these cultivators would believe what they had heard. There was no doubt that most of what the old man said was true, but equally, there may be other things that the Lost Clan had omitted. Therefore, they wanted to explore this magical place for themselves to see if they could gain anything from it. Even if there were no inheritance left by a great emperor, they wanted to see the inherited power left by the supreme cultivators, who were the ancestors of the Lost Clan, for themselves. More importantly, were there other purposes hidden within this mysterious space? Hearing this demand, the old man from the Lost Clan shook his head and said, the most precious treasures of the Lost Clan were housed inside this place, so we cannot disclose it to the public. Otherwise, would the Lost Clan still be considered the Lost Clan? Everything here is regarded as a top secret of the Lost Clan. Some of these places are considered forbidden areas, and even our own are not qualified to enter. Therefore, we hope you can understand our difficulty in complying with your request. Once, a similar scenario had played out in Ziwei Imperial Palace. Various principalities had descended upon Ziwei Imperial Palace at the same time, attempting to pressure the Imperial Palace to open the passageway into the Starry Sky world. The thing was that the Ziwei Imperial Palace had its own design at that time. It had actually allowed the top figures of all forces to enter intentionally, hoping to leverage their abilities to unlock the mystery of the Starry Sky. This secret zone paradise is truly amazing. It was formed with the forces of creation between heaven and earth. It is extremely rare to build such a secret zone for those in the Lost Clan to cultivate in. At this time, someone else said, however, we came from afar, filled with nothing but respect and awe for the Lost Clan. Why not let us enter and cultivate within the Lost Clan so that we may really become friends and solidify our friendship? Clearly, the man wanted to cultivate within the Lost Clan. Upon hearing his words, several cultivators nodded eagerly in agreement. After hearing about the history of the Lost Clan, it was true that most of them had the utmost respect for the Lost Clan. However, respect aside, it didn't mean that they would abandon their own mission so easily. Otherwise, why would they bother to come? They were beginning to realize that perhaps it wasn't so wise to come here. It was possible that they would not be able to gain anything for their trouble. After all, the cultivators of the Lost Clan frowned when they heard these words, and there were a lot of strange glances and expressions coming from the distance, displaying obscure but palpable displeasure. Suddenly, a powerful oppressive force shrouded this space. The invisible pressure alarmed those cultivators from outside, forcing them to tread very carefully. Although they were a conglomerate of many cultivators, it would probably still fall short of what they wanted to achieve. The Lost Clan wants to befriend everyone here, but it doesn't mean that we are willing to sacrifice our own interest to serve yours. Now, everyone who came here is among the top cultivators of various major principalities. Have you ever allowed any outsiders to force their way into your family or clan to cultivate? The old man's exhortation silenced everyone, and they were unable to refute his logic. Indeed, who among them would allow other outsiders to cultivate in their own clan under those conditions? And they were talking about their most excellent cultivation method, no less. The Lost Clan, of course, didn't want it either. They were the premier clan on the Shuni continent, the leader of the pack. In that case, what is the purpose of inviting all of us here to the Lost Clan? Someone else piped up. The person who spoke was the top cultivator from the Devil World, Xiao Mu, the direct disciple of the Devil Emperor. Previously, he was defeated by Futian and injured severely. It was the kind of injury that went beyond surface-level injuries. However, any existence at this level was fully capable of recovering from this kind of injury rather quickly. I have said before, it was for you all to learn more about the Lost Clan so that you can become friends. The old man looked at Xiao Mu and continued, of course, if you still feel that wasn't enough and want to understand us better, the cultivators of the Lost Clan are willing to have a friendly exchange with you so you can experience firsthand the cultivation methods carved inside the secret zone paradise. The Lost Clan had already taken a step back before, but now, it didn't seem likely that they were willing to back down any further. The Lost Clan had its own profound heritage in cultivation. There was no lack of forces that had attempted to enter their land by force before, but they could not achieve it for a reason. How? Someone queried. The Lost Clan will set up a matrix for everyone to enter and challenge. The realm will be at the same level, the cultivator from the Lost Clan replied. How can you determine the outcome? Someone asked. If the Lost Clan loses, could we enter the secret zone paradise to cultivate? Yes, the cultivator from the Lost Clan said as he looked at the speaker. He then asked in return, since you want to be allowed to enter our secret zone paradise to cultivate upon victory, what are you willing to wager in return if you are defeated? The cultivator who spoke before now appeared dumbfounded. He hadn't thought about this scenario. What would happen if they lost the battle? If you win, you want to enter our secret zone paradise, which is the holding place of the ultimate treasures of the Lost Clan. However, if you are defeated, would you be willing to hand over the cultivation methods you used during the battle, letting the Lost Clan enshrine them in the secret zone paradise for future generations? The old man proposed rather casually, which sent that cultivator into silence yet again. If so, it would be a fair exchange for both sides. I have no objection on the matter, Futian shrugged indifferently. Many cultivators around him nodded as well, a strong sense of confidence in their eyes. In their opinion, how could they possibly be defeated? If no one objects, let's go outside for the fight. It is not suitable to battle here, the old man from the Lost Clan directed. Everyone nodded and followed his lead to head outside. At the same time, many cultivators from the Lost Clan began to emerge as well, and some cultivators with phenomenal skills came out of the secret zone paradise with a shocking aura. For example, from the secret zone paradise at this moment, a shirtless middle-aged man appeared. His upper body seemed to be cast in golden bronze, and infinite power exuded from his entire person. His body seemed to be made out of gold. It was immortal and indestructible, like it could never be broken. The cultivator in the secret zone paradise had a golden halo hovering above his head as if crowned by divine light, and it was radiant beyond description. He, too, walked toward the outside. Successively, in that unique, isolated space of the Lost Clan, extraordinary figures came out one after another from the secret zone paradise, and everyone had a superb temperament. For countless years, the Lost Clan had been guarding this continent, protecting it from total destruction. They feared no death and had no regrets. They rarely fought major battles with anyone because there were not many opportunities to do so. But now, they had finally encountered the provocation of challenges from these human cultivators. All the outside cultivators walked out of the Lost Clan and returned to their respective camps. Cultivators from various forces inquired about the situation inside those forbidden buildings belonging to the Lost Clan and were briefed by those who had returned. Futian returned amongst the cultivators from Heavenly Mandate Academy and briefly recounted the Lost Clan situation. Everyone from Heavenly Mandate Academy was impressed with what they had heard and admired the Lost Clan for their persistence. As they understood it, their ancestors were awe-inspiring. They were willing to sacrifice everything to ensure the safety of the continent. The continent that was always pacing in front of death had strengthened these cultivators far more than the cultivators from the outside. Futian, what are you planning on doing? Emperor Nan asked Futian. He admired the spirit of the Lost Clan, and if they were to act against the Lost Clan, he would feel terribly uneasy in his heart. Let's first take a look at the strength of the Lost Clan. For the cultivator from the Lost Clan to make such a proposal, they must have absolute confidence in their own ability. Moreover, they already had some preliminary exchanges with the outside before, and potentially have a better understanding of others' strengths. This is a resilient clan that was struggling on the edge of death, and perhaps they were much stronger than we had originally thought, Futian explained. Emperor Nin nodded in acknowledgement without saying anything further. At this time, cultivators from all principalities stepped forward. They floated high above the firmament, standing in different locations to peer inside the Lost Clan. Someone said loudly, requesting instructions from the Lost Clan. Please send a representative so the Lost Clan could dispatch cultivators of equal realm, a voice urged from the Lost Clan. A cultivator from the outside stepped forward, and it was a Ran Huang of the 8th realm from a top principality of divine prefecture who was endowed with outstanding temperament. He said, I wish to experience the strength of the Lost Clan. Very well, came a response from inside the Lost Clan. Then 9 cultivators from the Lost Clan stepped out from different directions, and each one was a Ran Huang in the 8th realm. Their temperaments were somewhat similar, and each of these men was a powerful and imposing presence in his own right. The 9 cultivators walked out at the same time, were stationed in different positions, and one of the cultivators from the Lost Clan said, You are the top figures from every world, so we of the Lost Clan will cut you no slack in this battle. This battle matrix is of our most cultivated methods in resisting outside attacks, with 9 men acting as one. Of course, you can select 8 more cultivators of the same realm to join you in battle. As he was speaking, those 9 cultivators had started taking their positions already, standing in different directions, facing the challengers who were coming forward. Just by simply standing there, they emitted an incredibly unbearable oppressive force that actually made that cultivator from the divine prefecture feel a momentum that was nearly impossible to overcome. In this battle, it wouldn't be enough with just him alone. His gaze drifted to other principalities as if hinting for assistance. Suddenly, in different directions, some cultivators came forward one by one. They were all top-level Renhuang in the 8th realm. Among them, a cultivator who Futian recognized also came forward. It was none other than Ning Hua of the Donghua domain. I assume you have been told that if you win, the victors may enter the secret zone paradise of the Lost Clan to cultivate. But if you lose, you will each hand over the methods you have used in the battle and store them inside the secret zone paradise. Therefore, when you employ methods while fighting, I urge you to think carefully before you act, the cultivator from the Lost Clan cautioned them. As soon as his voice trailed off, Those 9 great Runhuang who had walked out immediately unleashed a monstrous coercion, and every one of them was surrounded by an extremely radiant divine light of the great path. Ning Hua's eyes were shining with the divine light of the seal, directly aiming at the 9 opponents in front of him. The light pierced into their eyes. However, he felt that these opponents returned his gaze, and those eyes contained an incomparably steady will that seemed impossible to shake and even more impossible to imprison. He frowned instinctively. This one glance made him feel that he was in the presence of some very powerful opponents, far stronger than what he had expected, and every one of them seemed to be equally powerful. Buzz. The divine wheel of the great path shone brightly, as a gigantic seal pattern now appeared above the firmament, projecting a shocking divine glory. Its massive presence covered the sky and the sun and descended above the 9 great cultivators. The divine light of the seal fell down as if intending to lock these 9 cultivators in place. At the same time, other cultivators made their moves in unison, and each one of their moves contained a shocking attack. The cultivators of various forces looked towards the battlefield in the void and saw the violent roar of the great path erupted from the bodies of the 9 cultivators. Extremely violent sounds of metal clashing were heard, sonorous and clear, as a golden light burst from their torsos. These lights turned into a substantial and palpable force, directly blasting onto the oncoming attacks. Above the void, there was a terrifying booming sound. The aura that erupted above their bodies already contained an unparalleled power. What was more terrifying was those golden bodies shining with the divine light between heaven and the earth. Their bodies were actually expanding, and when their flesh roared, their bodies turned into that of the ancient deities, standing in different positions like 9 statues of great gods. The roar of the great path inside their bodies had a certain resonance, which turned into a horrific great path sound wave that swept out. Suddenly, all the forces that were attacking them exploded and shattered, utterly destroyed. This sight stunned many cultivators, even those who were watching the battle from afar. They looked at the scene that was playing out before them with some surprise. Were these people really in possession of such terrifying combat effectiveness? More importantly, they hadn't even made their moves yet. Likewise, Futian was looking at the battlefield at this time. He saw the power used by these cultivators. He understood that their physical forms were very strong and very possibly had already reached an extremely frightening degree, like that of a divine body. He thought of everything the Lost Clan had faced. Could it be possible that the cultivators of the Lost Clan had achieved such tyrannical form to withstand the external storms and cast this unbreakable defense with their own mortal flesh? Those cultivators continued to attack, but under violent physical coercion. The attack from the 9 cultivators who came forward couldn't even break through their opponent's defense. The resonance produced by the physical body of the Great Path was so strong that it was quite horrifying. Although Ning Hua may not be considered a top figure in all of the Divine Prefecture, he was known as the #1 enchanting genius in the Donghua domain, and the combat effectiveness of the other cultivators with him was not weak either. However, at this moment, they were so passive on the battlefield. It greatly disturbed those who were watching the battle. It seemed that the strength demonstrated previously by the Lost Clan was not all that they were capable of, and their battle matrix was something even more terrifying to behold. That power of might was still expanding. Those ancient godlike figures stood between heaven and earth as if they were immortal and had been there since the beginning of time. There were divine shadows now manifesting in the surrounding space, as they became one with heaven and earth. The coercion now came down and corralled the 9 mighty cultivators within, including Ning Hua. It was as if the 9 of them had become prey in their trap. When everyone witnessed this sight, they understood that the outcome had already been determined. The battle had ended earlier than expected. Facing the Lost Clan, these 9 cultivators had no way to fight back. Chapter 23-29. Xiaomu prepared for battle. Under the united front of the 9 cultivators, the great path boomed and howled continuously. Above the 9 godlike figures, the golden divine glory turned into divine walls that moved to suppress the 9 trapped in the middle. Ning Hua and the others felt a suffocating coercion when they saw those oppressive divine walls closing in on them. The divine wheels of the great path bloomed upon them, releasing the strongest divine might to blast toward those divine walls. However, the walls shut everything down. Even the most powerful spatial shredding power could not shatter nor break it. Boom! The divine walls turned into a prison, continuously oppressing the 9 people within its bound. At this moment, the onlookers couldn't help but wonder if this was the kind of power that the cultivators of the Lost Clan had been using to protect the Shini continent. This power was capable of sealing the void shut. It was as if multiple cultivators had worked together to release the power to the extreme, and it was possible to shroud the entire boundless space of the continent. Clang, clang, clang. Ning Hua and the other cultivators attacked frantically, but couldn't move those divine walls a single inch. They could only watch the walls continuously closing in on them, and finally stopped not far away from where they stood. However, the walls trapped all 9 of them inside so that none could escape. None of their offensive moves could break this prison made of divine walls. "Are you planning to continue?" someone asked. The 9 cultivators from the Lost Clan stood outside the walls in different positions. The golden divine light surrounded them, and the sound of it rocked the void. Ning Hua and the others stopped their attacks. They couldn't help but feel a deep sense of helplessness. They were, without exception, extraordinary enchanting geniuses in their own rights, and the attack that they employed were vast. Nonetheless, they couldn't even break free of the divine walls that kept them imprisoned. How could they continue to fight? "Respect," one of the men said, as they now had a new understanding of the strength demonstrated by the Lost Clan. The powerful battle matrix formed by the 9 cultivators was not something they could counter and overcome. Even if they were stronger, it would still be impossible. They had never expected that there would be a group of such terrifying and powerful beings existing upon this continent, which came out of nowhere. They were not the only ones who had this epiphany. The cultivators watching on the sidelines had the same realization as well, and there was a slight disturbance in their hearts. The cultivators of the Lost Clan were so powerful that they far surpassed their expectations. This level was already at the very top of cultivation as they knew it. More importantly, how many more cultivators like this were inside the Lost Clan? Those 9 cultivators seemed to have walked out purely randomly, so what about the others? The divine light sparkled as the 9 cultivators took down the divine walls. Suddenly Ning Hua and his cohort felt great relief, as that sense of oppression disappeared. They looked at the 9 cultivators who, like deities, hovered above the sky, and they had no words to describe their feelings at the moment. Not only were they defeated, but they had been defeated so completely and miserably. It didn't take long for the battle to end, and it was clear that they didn't have any ability to fight back. They had not been able to pose even the slightest threat to those 9 opposing cultivators. This unexpected turn of events made them doubt their own abilities. They were the top figures from all continents, so why did they lose so miserably in front of these cultivators from the Lost Clan? Were there too many of them? Or were the cultivators from the Lost Clan too powerful for them? Somewhat depressed, they turned to leave, returning to their own camps. The 9 cultivators from the Lost Clan were still there, but the old man behind the 9 now reminded them, "Everyone, don't forget what you promised in the case that you lost." These 9 cultivators narrowed their eyes slightly. The losers were required to send the methods they used to the Lost Clan's secret zone paradise. Was he serious in asking them to surrender the wager now? "Anyone else want to give it a try?" the old man from the Lost Clan asked. The 9 cultivators of the 8th realm were still there, surrounded by divine light, releasing a horrific aura, waiting for the next opponents. If someone continued to challenge them, they would continue to oblige. Among the crowd, everyone looked at the location where those 9 cultivators were. These outside cultivators seemed to be assessing whether or not they had the ability to break down those divine walls. The previous 9 challengers were not weaklings, but the strength of the 9 cultivators from the Lost Clan seemed much greater. At this moment, a cultivator stepped out, and his appearance surprised many cultivators, as their attention was now focused on the man who volunteered. It was none other than the cultivator from the Devil World and a direct disciple of the Devil Emperor, Xiao Mu. When Futian saw Xiao Mu walking forward, his eyes revealed a bit of shock. Xiao Mu was a cultivator of an extremely powerful physical refining method, and his physique was not much less than his own. In addition, His 9 slashes of the heavenly demon were incredibly powerful. There was no telling whether this level of attack would be able to shake the defense of those 9 powerful cultivators inside the battle matrix. However, Xiao Mu's cultivation method was the method of the devil world, possibly passed down by the Devil Emperor himself. If he were to use it in this battle, what would happen if he was defeated? Did he really want to make a wager so tremendous that he could potentially hand over the cultivation method of the Devil Emperor himself to the Lost Clan? This seemed unlikely. Even Xiao Mu could not possibly decide something as grave as this. Not only him, but also no one from the devil world present could make such a decision. If it was the demonic method passed down by the Devil Emperor himself, only the Devil Emperor himself could decide how the method would be passed on to the outside world. Without permission from the Devil Emperor, who would dare to make such a decision on their own? In this sense, Xiao Mu would be completely unable to fulfill the promise agreed upon by the cultivators from the devil world. If he was defeated, he had no authority to hand over his cultivation method to the Lost Clan. For Xiao Mu to step forward under this condition, either he thought that he would definitely win, or that he might have to renege on the agreement he had made earlier. This was something not only Futian knew without a doubt, but other cultivators as well. In fact, Xiao Mu was not alone in this predicament. Many of those present couldn't possibly make promises of this magnitude unless they planned not to use their own expert methods in the battle. However, in that scenario, how could they possibly defeat these powerful opponents? The 9 great cultivators of the Lost Clan were no common folk. Xiao Mu's action attracted much attention. All of a sudden, cultivators stepped forward from other directions. Every one of the cultivators who stepped forward was a character with extraordinary temperament and attracted attention from all sides. Several of them held extraordinary status, so that the makeup of this group was far superior to the one before. Although Futian was not familiar with these cultivators who came out, he could feel their temperament. He realized that these people were far stronger than the previous 9, and their overall strength would be much more powerful. After they walked out, they came to a place high above the sky, standing in front of the 9 cultivators from the Lost Clan. A powerful aura bloomed from them, especially Xiao Mu. The demonic might tossed and roared, and even those who walked out with him could feel that oppressive force. The 9 people from the Lost Clan also felt a sense of threat, but they did not appear alarmed by it. Their expression was the same as usual, without the slightest bit of emotion. They stood in place, surrounded by the golden divine light of the great paths. Rounds and rounds of golden light screens spread out like waves of the great path, sweeping towards the 9 challengers. "Is everyone ready?" One of them questioned loudly as the sound of his voice shook the void. After his voice fell, an astonishing aura burst forth from those 9 opponents almost at the same time. In an instant, the demonic might overwhelmed the space, as demonic shadows appeared to shield the void. Xiao Mu took the lead to erupt with his own power. Chapter 2330, Battle Matrix of the Rocks. The golden divine light shone upon the 9 great cultivators from the Lost Clan, and the divine light that burst out from them flooded the sky. 9 massive and boundless shadows of the ancient gods appeared, covering the surrounding area as they stood above the sky. Those golden divine walls appeared again, sealing the void to imprison them within its bounds. It seemed that they were resorting to the same method as before. The monstrous demonic might gathered, and a demonic godlike figure appeared. Xiao Mu, likewise, burst out with an aggressive force as a dark demonic blade appeared above his head. A horrific apocalyptic aura now erupted from the demonic blade, unleashing the 9 slashes of the heavenly demon right off the bat. It seemed that Xiao Mu wanted to split open these divine walls in the most direct and domineering way possible. The rest of the cultivators also bloomed with their own extraordinary specialty. One stretched out his palms and saw that the palms became a golden color and kept expanding. There seemed to be the most brilliant golden divine light from the runes in the center of the palms. Needless to say, it contained incredible and horrific power. There was also a cultivator holding the infinite ruler. When he waved, the ruler expanded and clearly contained the terrifying power of the great path. They were curious to see just how strong this divine wall was. "You guys move first," Xiao Mu commanded, and the rest of his cohort nodded. Xiao Mu's status as the direct disciple of the Devil Emperor was lofty and supreme. He was probably the strongest of them all. There would be no questioning his authority in asking the others to move first. As attacks were blasted out successively and landed on those divine walls, suddenly, an astonishing destructive power erupted, causing the walls to vibrate and tremble. It was obviously more powerful than the previous attacks from those 9 people. After they unleashed their attacks, Xiao Mu's heavenly demon blade swung out, finding purchase on a weakened spot that was still trembling. Immediately, a crack appeared on the divine wall and spread quickly toward the inside. "Continue to attack there," said Xiao Mu. Instantly, the other cultivators began their furious and violent attacks on that very spot, causing the crack to widen. The second strike of the 9 slashes of the heavenly demon slammed down and tore a giant opening on the divine wall, which spread madly towards its surroundings. The opening continued to enlarge as other cracks began appearing in other areas. Buzz! The gigantic and boundless infinite ruler was thrown out and turned into a sky full of shadows, covering the sky and obscuring the sun. This came along with the booming roaring of the Great Path and the unparalleled power of spatial shredding of the Great Path. No corner was spared. It had made contact with every part of the divine wall. Crunch! There was a violent cracking sound as many cracks appeared on the divine walls. The attacks from other cultivators followed in its wake, and the cracks expanded. Xiao Mu's third strike of the 9 slashes of the heavenly demon smashed down for the kill. Finally, those countless cracks continued expanding faster until a light of destruction burst out. In an instant, the divine walls disintegrated and pulverized, completely in shambles. What an amazing defense! Futian applauded silently, not for the attacks from the 9 cultivators, but the sturdiness of the divine walls. They were too strong. Even a cultivator like Xiao Mu had to exert an inordinate effort to dismantle the walls. What kind of defense was this? Futian reckoned that even he himself could not have done it. The battle matrix formed by these 9 was incredibly awesome. He couldn't help but ask himself at this moment, if he was on the battlefield now, could he possibly break its defense? It was probably unlikely. After the divine walls were pulverized, the 9 great cultivators continued standing in those 9 positions without wavering. The ancient godlike phantoms overshadowed their bodies and were still expanding until they resembled the bodies of the ancient gods, shrouding this corner of the sky. When everyone saw this, they were beyond surprised. The bodies of the 9 ancient gods were connected. Their massive and towering bodies covered heaven and the earth as if to seal this space with bodies of flesh and blood. The hearts of many quivered. How strong would their physical defenses be? Xiao Mu and other cultivators fixed their attention on the 9 ancient gods surrounding the void. An overwhelming power of the Great Path gathered once again, and the light from the heavenly demon blade was shining. Jets of black destruction currents circulated ominously. They did not believe that the defensive power of these cultivators from the Lost Clan could be dominant enough to ignore their level of attacks. "Move at the same time," said Xiao Mu. Suddenly, he moved to attack one of the ancient gods. The fourth strike from the heavenly demon blade unleashed. When the light of the blade bloomed, it seemed on the verge of crushing through the void as it smashed toward one of the ancient gods. Like him, the other 8 cultivators did the same. Each selected an ancient god and exploded with massive attacking power. For a time, within this space of the Great Path, terrifying storms of destruction erupted. Numerous destructive attacks blasted on the bodies of these 9 ancient gods at the same time. The terrifying power rocked the bodies of these ancient gods. Xiao Mu's broadsword will, especially, seemed to have penetrated the defenses crafted by the golden divine light and rushed into the bodies of the ancient gods. The residual waves of the attacks jolted the physical bodies of the cultivators shrouded inside these ancient deities, and the terrifying destructive force aimed to crush and kill them. Bang, bang, bang. The 9 great cultivators of the Lost Clan were impacted on their flesh by that tyrannical attack, but they remained standing firmly, as indestructible as rocks, unfazed. All the cultivators were shocked when they beheld this sight, including Futian. Physical bodies like this in the attack just now, he clearly felt that all 9 cultivators had been attacked. The one directly facing Xiao Mu had been hit the hardest. However, he was as solid as a rock, standing tall, like a truly invincible presence that would never fall. Moreover, the abilities currently demonstrated by these cultivators from the Lost Clan were their tyrannical and aggressive defensive powers, whether supernatural or physical. However, they did not demonstrate any substantive offensive moves. Could the environment be a factor? Their mission was to protect the Shini continent, so their main focus was on defense, not offense. But such tyrannical physiques almost guaranteed that their combat effectiveness would be equally horrific. They would, no doubt, be able to slay an ordinary existence of the same realm in the blink of an eye. The physical tyranny of these people was probably not much lesser than that of Xiaomu. What Xiaomu cultivated was the super-demonic form passed down by the Devil Emperor. Once more, Xiaomu's eyes sharpened, and he became more somber as he made his command. He continued to gather an even stronger demonic might, and the fifth strike of the 9 slashes of the heavenly demon condensed into existence. Its power overwhelmed the sky, frightening to the extreme. He couldn't believe that he wouldn't be able to defeat this defense. At this moment, all 9 cultivators of the Lost Clan condensed the seals in their hands. Suddenly, phantoms of even more ancient gods manifested between heaven and earth, and invisible sounds of rhythm appeared in the void. Boundless and solemn, they made everyone feel an incredible heaviness. It seems that even Xiaomu and his cohort cannot break the defense of the Lost Clan, Futian thought when he saw this. They were far stronger, and this force was indestructible. Sure enough, when Xiaomu's fifth strike smashed down, the rest of the cultivators exploded with even stronger attacks, but the result was the same. All the powerful people from the Lost Clan stood in the distance and quietly observing as this played out in front of their eyes. These 9 people were far from ordinary. They were cultivators carefully selected by the Lost Clan. The battle matrix of the rocks that they crafted was not something that could be easily broken. Chapter 23:31. Choosing the right person. Xiaomu felt an incredible sense of defeat. He had already unleashed 5 strikes, which was at no small cost to himself. And now, he had only enough strength to launch one last strike of the 9 slashes of the heavenly demon. However, at present, the 5th strike was still unable to get the job done. Would the 6th strike make any difference? Previously, he was defeated at the hands of Futian. Now, facing the cultivators from the Lost Clan, he was not faring any better. This was totally different from what he had in mind. He came from the Devil World and a direct disciple of the Devil Emperor himself. His cultivation was so tremendous that he thought no one could compete across all major worlds. But after coming to the original realm, he had tasted nothing but frustration. He was defeated right off the bat in the first battle by Futian, who was an entire realm lower than him. In both battles that he had participated in after arriving in the original realm, Xiaomu seemed to realize just how big the world really was and how many outstanding figures there were in the world. The Lost Clan that appeared during the changes taking place in the original realm was a good example. None of their cultivators were any less when battling the top figures in this world. Above the firmament, the 9 powerful cultivators from the Lost Clan put their hands together. A divine light bloomed at their brow chakras, turning into thousands of divine shadows. It was as if they were the ancient gods who were as solid as a rock. They had transformed their incomparably resilient spiritual will in combination with the bodies of the Great Path and forged this body of the ancient god. The bodies of many ancient gods resonated and merged into one, turning this space into a rock domain, like a domain belonging to the deities. It was as indestructible as the will of the Lost Clan. Futian was not the only one who felt the immensity of that power. Even others realized that those 9 cultivators, who were as strong as Xiaomu, still couldn't break down defenses such as this one. The cultivators from the Lost Clan were experts at constructing defense, so much so that this defensive force could not be destroyed at all. Even the 9 cultivators on the battlefield realized it themselves. Even so, they didn't give up. The great path on their bodies roared as an extraordinary power burst forth. Xiaomu, likewise, unleashed the 6th strike in the 9 slashes of the heavenly demon in concert with the rest of the cultivators. The attack this time was several times stronger than the previous ones. When the attack landed, the divine shadows that had filled the heaven shook violently, and some of them were shattered. Obviously, This extremely powerful attack could shake up the battle matrix of the rocks to some extent. However, the outcome remained the same. The shapes of those 9 cultivators from the Lost Clan were shaken a bit, but remained as unmoving as a rock. Their physical bodies and spiritual will were integrated and were in perfect harmony with heaven and earth. Their spiritual will was as firm as a rock, and their physical bodies were deeply rooted in the earth. This was the true essence of the battle matrix of the rocks. It was as the ancestors had intended when they created it. This was the only way that Shinny continent could be protected despite the darkness and continue its survival in the world. As Futian observed this power from the battle matrix of the rocks, he could clearly perceive the firmness of the will from these cultivators. He could see how the cultivators from the Lost Clan were able to survive these countless years, wandering through the dark world on the Shinny continent. They had turned their own bodies into rock to protect the continent from destruction. At this moment, there was more credence in what the cultivator from the Lost Clan had told them. This was certainly a clan worthy of great respect and friendship, and definitely not as an enemy. Excellent. Cultivators such as Emperor Nan and the others also realized this and let out an emotional remark. How determined were they need to be to shuttle through these endless years in the darkness like this? They had forged rocks out of flesh and blood to protect the Shinny continent. This could not be achieved without a certain degree of conviction. It was precisely on account of their steadfast belief that they were able to explode with such terrifying combative power. Even the one as great as Xiao Mu, the Devil Emperor's own direct disciple, had no way of defeating them. Their spirit was simply awe-inspiring. On the battlefield, Xiao Mu and the other 9 cultivators were discouraged and frustrated. They knew they had been defeated, and it was impossible to break this defense. It was not just a matter of Xiao Mu and the others. The result would be the same with another set of 9 cultivators. Perhaps if there were 9 people at the same level as Xiao Mu, they might have a chance to destroy the battle matrix of the rocks. But how strong of a force would be required then? Everyone, please exit. The battle matrix of the rocks opened up and a passageway appeared, allowing Xiao Mu and his party to leave. Both sides understood that the outcome couldn't be clearer, so there was no point in continuing the fight. Impressive. Xiao Mu's eyes were pitch black as he looked at the cultivator from the Lost Clan. He then exited the bounds of the battle matrix of the rocks and returned to the camp that belonged to the Devil World. The other cultivators followed his lead and returned to camp with him, disturbed to their core. This battle was not your fault. Few would be able to break this battle matrix, an elder from the Devil World said to Xiao Mu. Even though he was watching the battle from the sidelines, he could sense the power exuded from the battle matrix of the rocks. But it didn't make Xiao Mu feel any better. Defeat was defeat. No amount of excuses could explain that away. It's a great feat for you to be able to shake the battle matrix of the rocks like this. The battle matrix of the rocks, forged by the 9 of them, requires the full eruption of their spiritual will and physical strength to the extreme to render the battle matrix indestructible. You have done very well already. At this time, the old man from the Lost Clan spoke up, perhaps wanting to comfort them. However, from his words, one could detect the Lost Clan's strong faith in the battle matrix of the rocks. The power of the Great Path integrated spiritual will and physical strength. The ultimate power that erupted from it was then used to form this unbreakable battle matrix. For countless years, generations of cultivators from the Lost Clan had protected the Shinny continent by relying on superior defenses such as the battle matrix of the rocks. Furthermore, this was not yet the ultimate configuration in the battle matrix of the rocks. Would there be anyone in the Runhuang 8th realm who wants to give it a try? The old man from the Lost Clan asked as he surveyed the cultivators from all forces. At this moment, those whose cultivation was at the very top were impatient, as if they were all eager to see just how strong was this battle matrix of the rocks and if they could destroy it. I'll try. At this moment, another cultivator came forward. This was someone from Divine Prefecture. When this man appeared, many cultivators from Divine Prefecture sat up and took notice. Obviously, many cultivators knew who the man was. Clad in white, this man was stunningly handsome. Just standing there, he seemed to be one with the Great Path, emitting an air of celestial detachment. After the Renhuang in white walked forward, he glanced at the 9 cultivators from the Lost Clan and then at the cultivators from Divine Prefecture. Someone else walked out as if wanting to give it a try. However, the Renhuang in white saw him walked out and said instead, "If you want to try it, try in the next round." The Renhuang at the receiving end of this remark frowned. The man's words were so impolite they were bordering on rude. However, the Renhuang in white didn't seem to care at all. He looked at all the cultivators from Divine Prefecture and said, "The Lost Clan's battle matrix of the rocks is indestructible, but all the principalities of Divine Prefecture are here as well. So how can there be battle matrices that cannot be broken? Therefore, I would like to invite some others from Divine Prefecture to break the battle matrix of the rocks with me." His meaning couldn't be clearer. He wanted to pick his allies, and that cultivator who had walked out was not considered suitable. In his opinion, the man was not worthy of fighting side by side with him. The various cultivators all looked at the person who had spoken. He clearly wanted to break through the battle matrix of the rocks for him to have stepped forward. He also wanted to select people to follow him to break through the matrix. Obviously, he placed great importance in the battle matrix of the rocks, and his true colors were showing. This cultivator was from the ancient god clan of the Nantian domain in the Divine Prefecture. He was an existence with exceptional ability. He turned down the cultivators who had proactively stepped forward just now. He believed that the other party was unworthy of standing side by side with him in battle. If that were the case, the people that he wanted to select would certainly be figures of the same level as him. Was he planning to choose the most brilliant figures of the Divine Prefecture to follow him into battle? If so, it was indeed possible for them to break through the battle matrix of the rocks. Among the cultivators here today, the lineup of cultivators from the Divine Prefecture was indeed the strongest. After all, in name, the original realm was still under the rule of the Donghuang Imperial Palace of the Divine Prefecture. The top forces of the 18 domains in the Divine Prefecture had all come here, including the domain chief's manors as well as the ancient god clan. Hence, it was possible to choose 9 of the finest 8th-tier Renhuangs from among the various forces of the 18 domains. The white-robed cultivator's gaze shifted in a different direction. In that direction, a group of figures was radiating with golden divine halos. They were dazzling to behold, but their appearances were not outstanding. They quietly stood there, but they gave off an unshakable vibe. The temperament of these people was even similar to that of the 9 great cultivators of the Lost Clan. The gazes of many cultivators also turned to look in that direction. Futian and the cultivators of the Heavenly Mandate Academy were not familiar with the top forces of the Divine Prefecture. However, in the Divine Prefecture, many forces knew something about each other. When they saw this group of people, many cultivators from the top forces of the Divine Prefecture knew their identity. They were from the strongest force from the Vajra domain of the 18 domains in the Divine Prefecture. They were also part of the ancient god clan and had inherited the teachings of a great emperor. When they saw the gaze of the white-robed youth, a cultivator from among this force walked out. He seemed to understand the intention in the other party's gaze. The skin of this cultivator appeared golden. His eyes shone with a sharp, golden divine light. He looked at the white-robed cultivator and said, "If that is the case, let us experience the battle matrix of the rocks of the Lost Clan together." The white-robed cultivator nodded his head slightly. He shifted his gaze again and looked in another direction. This time, he looked towards the cultivators of a top force from the Yuanshi domain. Similarly, a cultivator immediately walked out from there. This time, the cultivator who emerged seemed older and gave off an otherworldly air. However, no one dared to underestimate him. The cultivators from the Dark World, the Devil World, the Human Realm as well as the other worlds watched all of this quietly. They all realized that the Divine Prefecture was preparing to send their strongest lineup into battle. Among the 8th-tier Renhuangs, even though they might not be the strongest group, they would definitely be considered the finest. They were adamant about breaking through the battle matrix of the rocks. Right now, even the cultivators of the Lost Clan had serious expressions. They seemed to have realized the resolve of the other party. Although they were confident in the battle matrix of the rocks, they did not dare underestimate this group. Each cultivator who stepped forward made the cultivators of the Lost Clan feel slightly pressured. Any one of them could prove a match for Xiaomu. After that, the gaze of the white-robed cultivator continued to wander among the crowd. More and more people emerged. Not long after, 7 cultivators had stepped forward. Including the white-robed youth himself, there were 8 powerful cultivators. When some of the forces of the divine prefecture saw these 8 powerful cultivators, they had serious looks. If such a lineup could not break through the battle matrix of the rocks, it would most likely be impossible for the other cultivators of the divine prefecture to do so. There was still one more candidate to be chosen. Who would he choose? The white-robed cultivator's gaze landed in one direction. The various cultivators followed his gaze. Many of them revealed strange expressions when they saw where he was looking. He was actually looking in the direction where the cultivators of the Heavenly Mandate Academy were. The person that he was looking at was similarly clad in white robes. His hair was also white like his robes, and he appeared extremely handsome. Him? Many people revealed strange looks. His cultivation was only at the 7th tier. For the final candidate, this monstrous figure of the Nantion domain had actually chosen him. I have heard that you are the top monstrous figure of the original realm. Would you be willing to join us in battle? Asked the white-robed youth. As expected, he was officially extending an invitation to this person. The final candidate he had chosen was Futian. This also surprised Futian. His cultivation was only at the 7th tier Renhuang plane. The people that the other party had chosen before this were all 8th tier Renhuangs. He could not figure out why the white-robed cultivator had chosen him as the last candidate. However, he naturally knew that his own combat ability was sufficiently powerful. At the very least, he would not hold them back. After all, not long ago, he had defeated an 8th tier demonic emperor and one of the direct disciples of the devil emperor, Xiao Mu. Hence, he was certainly qualified to join the battle. Isn't it a little rash for him to be the 9th candidate? Said a cultivator who had stepped forward before this. Although he also knew that Futian was the top monstrous figure of the original realm, he was still a 7th tier Renhuang. If Futian was also an 8th tier Renhuang like them, inviting him to join the battle was unquestionable. However, given that he was a 7th tier Renhuang, he seemed to be out of place. The 8 of them who came forward were all prominent figures renowned far and wide. It was not just in a city or a domain. Even in the entire divine prefecture, they were still monstrous figures who stood at the peak. If the 7th tier Futian were to join them in battle, he would be a misfit. I believe in Renhuang Ye's ability, said the white-robed cultivator. His temperament was otherworldly. He was still looking at Futian, seemingly awaiting Futian's answer. Futian contemplated this as he looked at the other party. After a short while in deep thought, he then nodded his head and said, "All right." As he said this, he stepped forward. He also wanted to experience how powerful the battle matrix of the rocks was. With their current lineup, Futian realized that it might truly be possible to break through the battle matrix of the rocks. Even without him, the possibility of doing so was still the same. Since it was so, there was no harm in him participating. He stepped forward, and immediately the gazes of the group from the divine prefecture landed on him. The other 7 powerful cultivators were naturally curious towards the top monstrous figure of the original realm. As a 7th tier Renhuang, he actually came forward to join the 8 of them in battle. All around them, the cultivators of the various forces of the divine prefecture looked towards the battlefield. They glanced across the 9 cultivators. Every one of them was a prominent monstrous figure. They would certainly develop and become the group of people that stood at the very top of the divine prefecture. They might even control a top force and gain great authority in the future. This group of people had joined forces to challenge the cultivators of the Lost Clan and break through the battle matrix of the rocks. With this lineup, could they break through it? Chapter 23:33 Practicing Faith. The 8 cultivators from the ancient god clan included the heir of Haotian, the great from the Haotian clan of the Nantion domain, the successor of the Vajra region of the Vajra domain, the heir of Yuanshur the great from the Yuanshur domain, and the successor of West Imperial Palace from the West Sea domain. Together with Futian, they formed a super powerful lineup. Their mission was to break through the battle matrix of the rocks set up by the Lost Clan. All the other cultivators put on serious expressions. They were full of anticipation and were eager to witness the battle. The cultivators from the Divine Prefecture were especially excited about this battle. This lineup was terrifying. The cultivators chosen to join the battle were definitely the strongest ones among all the 8th tier Renhuangs. Their abilities went without question. Yi Futian was the only 7th-tier Runhuang in the team. However, based on his glorious record, the crowd speculated that even though he was only at the 7th tier, his combat ability would most likely not be any weaker than that of those monstrous 8th-tier figures. The crowd here had yet to hear about Yi Futian defeating Xiao Mu, a disciple of the Devil Emperor. Many of the cultivators here had long arrived on this continent. The cultivators from the Devil World arrived in the original realm much later. Besides that, they only came to this continent after Xiao Mu was defeated by Yi Futian. If the crowd had heard of the news, they would not have any doubts about Yi Futian's combat ability at all. As the top monstrous figure who had defeated a direct disciple of the Devil Emperor, Yi Futian showed no sign of inferiority when standing among this powerful lineup. The white-robed cultivator who invited the rest to join the team was Hua Junlai from the Haotian clan of the Nantian domain. The Haotian clan was part of the ancient god clan. They received an inheritance from Haotian the Great. Hua Junlai was the heir of the great emperor. His name was renowned far and wide in the Nantian domain. He was definitely a leader. Moreover, he showed an understanding of the top forces from various domains. Otherwise, he wouldn't have directly invited the cultivators from the ancient god clan of various domains to join him in battle. Aside from Yi Futian, the 8 powerful cultivators who were selected all had powerful backgrounds. Their families could be considered among the most terrifying forces in the Divine Prefecture. Members of the Lost Clan, let us begin. Hua Junlai greeted the 9 great cultivators of the Lost Clan. Then, an extremely powerful aura of the Great Path emanated from his figure. It was not just him. From other locations, frightening auras of the Great Path burst forth. The instant these auras of the Great Path radiated outwards, an intense rumbling of the Great Path could be heard, causing the surrounding space to tremble. Radiant divine light similarly shone from Yi Futian's divine body. The power of the Great Path inside his body roared. He swept a glance at the people around him. They stood at 9 different locations. Sensing the strength of their power, Yi Futian speculated that the battle matrix of the Lost Clan would most likely fall to them. It was completely different this time. The 9 people this time were all top monstrous existences. There was no discrepancy in their strength. Once all of them attacked at the same time, their power would be unparalleled. From his observation of the previous battle, the strength of the battle matrix of the rocks lay in the fact that 9 people acted as one. Even if one location was faced with the fiercest of attacks, the other parts of the matrix could instantly compensate and reach an equilibrium, ensuring that the battle matrix survived. However, if the entire battle matrix was attacked by the 9 great cultivators' most powerful attacks simultaneously, there was still a chance that it would be instantly shattered. Now, the 9 of them had the ability to do so. It was because of this that Yi Futian decided to join the fight. Since the result was already determined, and the Lost Clan would not prevent the rest of them from entering the space, it was convenient for him to occupy one of the 9 spots. This time, the 9 great cultivators of the Lost Clan had unprecedented, serious looks. They formed seals with their hands. Immediately, the sound of the Great Path could be heard. Illusory figures of ancient gods formed. They blocked out the sky and sealed off the space. Like before, the ancient gods were everywhere, sealing off this part of the sky. The 9 great cultivators were all trapped within the matrix. The Lost Clan immediately started the battle with the power that they had demonstrated in the latter part of the previous battle. From this, it was apparent that they took the cultivators from the Divine Prefecture seriously. "Everyone, how about we break it with one strike?" asked Hua Junlai. Since they wanted to break through the battle matrix of the rocks, it was meaningless to waste any more time. If they wanted to break through it, they might as well destroy it with one strike by unleashing absolute power. Trying to wear it down like the previous 9 people was meaningless. "Agreed," someone responded. Immediately, the unparalleled power of the Great Path gathered around the 9 of them. They were trapped in this vast space, yet judging from the brilliant imperial glories around them, one could still sense how powerful they were. A majestic and divine figure appeared behind Hua Junlai. It was the illusory figure of a great emperor. It was as though the great emperor himself had descended on earth. A shocking power erupted from Hua Junlai. His white robes fluttered while his long hair danced in the wind. He raised his arm, and the illusory figure of the great emperor followed suit. A gigantic palm instantly smashed towards the other party. The gigantic palm glowed brightly with divine light, and it caused the entire space to quake. It was as though the palm could directly shatter the space. At the same time, the cultivators who stood in different directions also unleashed their attacks. The successor of the Vajra region pointed at the sky. His finger kept expanding as though it was a finger of the god of the Vajra region. The finger was indestructible and could penetrate through all things. The cultivator from Yuanshire Palace waved his arm. Billions of swords of catastrophe immediately materialized in the sky. They lined up to form a mighty matrix of swords of catastrophe and rained down like the wrath of a god. The other 5 cultivators also attacked. Each and every attack was overbearing. Futian didn't stand idly too. A menacing aura burst forth from his body of the great path. His body transformed into swordsmanship. When he pointed a finger forward, countless divine swords in the heavens and the earth resonated, and rang his sword will coalesce to form the fleeting divine sword. It then charged towards one of the illusory figures of the ancient gods summoned by the cultivators of the Lost Clan. All 9 of them attacked at the same time. In other places, very few could withstand any of their attacks. With all of them unleashing their attacks at once, how frightening would their collective power be? When the attacks landed on their targets, the shattering sound of pieces breaking apart could be heard. Cracks immediately appeared in the sealed space. Furthermore, the cracks kept propagating outwards. Then, the sealed space disintegrated. The figures of the ancient gods also exploded and turned to dust. The sky seemed to be collapsing. The matrix had been broken. The crowd felt their hearts tremble. As expected, even the sturdy battle matrix of the rocks could not withstand the attacks of the top 9 figures from the divine prefecture. The matrix was close to perfect in terms of defense. However, it was no match for these 9 cultivators. Every one of them was a top existence who could rule over a region. Futian had mixed feelings when he saw the sealed space collapsing. He was interested in testing out the battle matrix of the rocks, but actually, he was unwilling to become an enemy of the Lost Clan. He found the faith practiced by the cultivators of the Lost Clan admirable. Unfortunately, the cultivators from the Divine Prefecture were determined to succeed in this mission. They would not pass up on the chance of cultivating in the secret zone. They were willing to put together such a strong lineup to break through this grand matrix. Just when everyone else thought that the matrix had been broken, the elder of the Lost Clan had a calm expression. He sighed inside as he glanced at the 9 great cultivators of the Lost Clan. The next moment, the 9 great cultivators of the Lost Clan shut their eyes. Divine lights shot out from their glabellas and converged at the same point. A solemn sound of the great path echoed. The atmosphere of the vast space suddenly changed. Then, the crowd witnessed the shattered space coalesce once again. The battle matrix of the rocks was repairing itself. What was happening? The surrounding cultivators had puzzled expressions. Divine light shone brightly from the 9 great cultivators of the Lost Clan. Their flesh turned somewhat illusory, as though their entire beings were merging into this space of the great path. They transformed into ancient gods as their wills and spirits were pushed to their utmost limit. Futian's eyes narrowed when he heard the solemn sound of the great path. He turned his gaze towards the 9 great cultivators of the Lost Clan. A sense of uneasiness welled up inside of him. They were Futian suddenly thought of the faith held dear by the cultivators of the Lost Clan. They would transform their flesh into rocks and protect the continent. At this very moment, could it be that they were still practicing their faith? To the side, the various cultivators of the Lost Clan stood at different locations. Their expressions turned sullen when they saw the scene in the sky. Many of them put their hands together and bowed at the 9 great cultivators high above. The elder of the Lost Clan also looked in that direction. He secretly sighed. However, his gaze was extremely resolute. On the day they joined the Lost Clan, everything had been determined. The cultivators of the Lost Clan were all prepared to offer up their lives at any given moment. No matter what plane they had cultivated to, no matter what status they held, they were all prepared to put down their lives. This was the belief that they had held on to resolutely for countless years. It was the faith that was planted within their souls. It was because of this belief that the cultivators of the Lost Clan could set aside all other distractions and all cultivate to a high cultivation plane. Therefore, the overall ability of the cultivators of this continent was very powerful. Now, the Lost Clan had just emerged from the Dark World. Yet, they were faced with a new crisis. Cultivators from various worlds had come and intended to plunder everything that the Lost Clan had. Once the Lost Clan agreed to the cultivators' requests, their inheritance would be slowly corrupted. Then, the influence of the outsiders would gradually be strengthened across the entire Shini continent. Human greed knew no bounds. The Lost Clan did not believe that the other party would be satisfied and would leave the Lost Clan alone after they were granted access to cultivate in the cave. On the contrary, the other party would pillage the cave once they discovered the secrets of cultivation hidden within it. An even stronger urge to raid would well up in their hearts, driving them to take over the Lost Clan completely. If that were the case, even though the Lost Clan fought hard and escaped the Dark World, they would most likely be destroyed in the original realm. Sometimes, the hearts of humans were more terrifying than disasters looming in the dark. Hence, regardless of the price that they had to pay, the Lost Clan would not allow the cultivators from other worlds to seize control of the cave and cultivate there. To gain the cultivators' trust, the Lost Clan was willing to let the cultivators briefly check out the place. This was to achieve a state that would allow the Lost Clan to exist peacefully in the original realm. The Shini continent would become an independent continent like the other continents in the original realm. The Lost Clan would not lose in this battle. They could not afford to lose either. High above the sky of the battlefield, the vast space was sealed off by the 9 great cultivators of the Lost Clan. They transformed themselves into ancient gods and became one with the heavens and the earth. Futian and the rest stood within the space. They witnessed the battle matrix of the rocks take shape once again. This time, the matrix was even more menacing. Futian saw the figures of the ancient gods surrounding them. Divine light flowed around the ancient gods. The faces of the 9 great cultivators of the Lost Clan could be vaguely seen imprinted on the faces of the ancient gods. It was as though the 9 great cultivators had completely merged with the ancient gods. They had given up their consciousness, their self, and their flesh. Their entire being had become parts of the battle matrix of the rocks. Moreover, the way of rhythm twirled within the battle matrix of the rocks. Futian sensed the solemnity from the rhythm. Besides that, the rhythm contained a hint of sorrow, great courage, and the resolution to do and die. The 9 great cultivators were exhausting their lives as sacrifices to the battle matrix of the rocks. Their selfless act elevated the power of the matrix. This new battle matrix of the rocks grew more brilliantly and was surrounded by divine light. Its beauty shocked all who saw it. The solemn way of rhythm played continuously, exerting a powerful pressure on the cultivators. Aside from Futian, other cultivators also noticed the changes that occurred to the battle matrix of the rocks. "Everyone, have you gone mad?" asked Hua Junlai, heir to the Haotian clan from the Nantian domain, as he looked at the 9 great cultivators of the Lost Clan. They were merging themselves into the battle matrix. If the battle matrix were shattered by attacks, the 9 great cultivators of the Lost Clan would perish on the spot and be killed. Their lives were on the line. They forged the battle matrix of the rocks with their own bodies of flesh and blood. There was no response. The unparalleled pressure persisted. The cultivators of the Lost Clan still did the same and did not take the initiative to attack. They established the battle matrix of the rocks merely for defense. No matter how one looked at it, the Lost Clan appeared exceptionally friendly. They put themselves in a passive state of defending. When Hua Junlai and the others saw this scene, their expressions turned serious. He said, "If that is the case, we won't hold back." As he said this, the illusory figure of the great emperor shone even brighter. He extended his palm, and an astonishing power immediately surged into his palm. The other cultivators also amassed frightening auras of the Great Path. Divine wheels of the Great Path appeared. Even more alarming auras radiated from their figures. Only Futian did not gather up his power. He glanced at the various cultivators, and then looked in the direction of the members of the Lost Clan. He knew that if the battle matrix of the rocks were shattered, the 9 great cultivators of the Lost Clan would die on the spot. Since the Lost Clan chose to do so, their resolve was evident. They would not back down at all. They took a passive stance, but, in reality, it also displayed their resolve. They would not let the cultivators from the outside world enter the core region of the Lost Clan to cultivate. This point was evident from them offering up their lives to protect the battle matrix of the rocks. From the looks of it, the Lost Clan didn't really want the powers cultivated by other cultivators either. They purposely brought up this condition just now. If they managed to survive, then they would most likely give up this condition to give face to the various forces. Their act would hopefully cause the various forces to feel ashamed. Then, the two parties would have an opportunity to resolve their differences and let go of the matter of cultivating in the cave. Futian seemed to have understood the intentions of the Lost Clan. However, both sides were caught in a dilemma. The Lost Clan did not hesitate to pay such a high price to win this battle. Since it was so for this fight, it would also certainly be the same for the next. This time, the cultivators of the Divine Prefecture were the ones attacking. The top figures of the Dark World, the empty Divine Realm, and the human realm had yet to attack. There were also cultivators from other worlds as well. Under such circumstances, if the Lost Clan wanted to hold their ground and not surrender, how high of a price did they have to pay for it to be enough? How many top-tier cultivators of the Lost Clan needed to be sacrificed? When he thought about this, Futian felt somewhat hesitant. Would he attack and break the battle matrix of the rocks? If he did so, everything that the Lost Clan had done would be for naught. The 9 great cultivators would also perish on the spot. Before this, he had only joined the battle because he believed the battle matrix would certainly be broken. He had never imagined the determination of the Lost Clan would be so strong, and that this would be their trump card. Otherwise, he would not have participated in this battle. Just as Futian was contemplating this, the other cultivators had already begun to attack. The frenzied attacks of 8 powerful cultivators landed consecutively on the battle matrix of the rocks. Immediately, the sound of an astounding explosion could be heard. The entire space was trembling violently. The battle matrix of the rocks was also shaking, seemingly unstable. However, as the divine light circled it, it still did not shatter. The 9 great cultivators of the Lost Clan merged into the battle matrix and became ancient gods. They nodded their heads slightly and closed their eyes. They sat motionlessly there like statues. Right now, their lives were no longer their own. They only served to protect the battle matrix of the rocks as martyrs. As long as the matrix held up, they would survive. If it fell, they would fall with it. The matrix had not shattered. The various cultivators in the distance were somewhat uneasy when they saw this scene. As long as the matrix held up, the Lost Clan would survive. What sort of faith was this? If they wanted to break through the matrix, they had to kill the 9 great cultivators of the Lost Clan. The Lost Clan was ruthless. Chapter 23:35. No compromise. Not only were the cultivators from the Lost Clan ruthless towards their enemies, but they were also ruthless towards themselves. They would risk their lives to protect their cultivation land. The cultivators from the top forces of the Divine Prefecture and other worlds doubted that they would ever endanger their own lives for the same cause. It was arduous for them to cultivate up until their current cultivation planes. Those who stood at the peak of the cultivation world would treasure their lives even more than others. At the very least, they would not simply do something that they knew for sure would cause them to perish. There were very few things that were worthy of them risking their lives to protect. Why didn't you attack? After the storm dissipated, the 8 powerful cultivators discovered that Futian hadn't attacked. He merely observed on the side while the rest of them attacked the battle matrix of the rocks. Futian's actions caused the others to be dissatisfied. The battle matrix of the rocks had transformed and was now stronger than before. Futian actually stood still while the rest attacked it. Did he have any intention to break through the matrix? Quite a few cultivators glared at Futian as they frowned. They had unhappy expressions on their faces. Clearly, they were irritated at Futian's actions. Since Futian wasn't attacking now, wouldn't he be gaining the opportunity to cultivate in the holy land of the Lost Clan without contributing anything if they managed to break through the battle matrix of the rocks later? If that was the case, what was the point of inviting him to be part of the team to break through the matrix? Futian explained, "The battle matrix of the rocks has been upgraded. It will most likely not be simple to break through it. Even though all of us here are top cultivators, it is still difficult for us to break through the matrix. Judging from the current situation, the cultivators from the Lost Clan will surely perish if we succeed in breaking through it. Do we have to go so far for a spar? Futian suggested, why don't we stop here? Let's forget about the agreement too. What do you think? After he said this, he turned towards the cultivators of the Lost Clan and said, I'm sure the Lost Clan will also agree to my suggestion, right? He hoped that both parties would forego this fight and end things here. The 9 cultivators of the Lost Clan had merged themselves into the battle matrix of the rocks. They were undoubtedly cruel to themselves. However, their resolute attitude would similarly provoke the ego of the cultivators from the Divine Prefecture. The cultivators from the Divine Prefecture would most likely fight until the very end to break through the matrix. Futian was worried that if both parties persisted in this battle, their animosity towards each other would go beyond the point of no return. The situation would only worsen from then on. It was not something Futian wanted to see. The 8 major factions of the ancient god clan have come together for this mission. Is there a matrix that we can't break through? Said someone coldly. The speaker cast a sideways glance at Futian as his annoyance towards him flared up. Not only did Futian refuse to attack, but he was also arrogant and intended to teach the rest of them how to proceed with the matter. Did Futian think that he was the only one with compassion? Since the Lost Clan insisted on fighting, the ancient god clan would naturally grant their wish. Even when faced with the upgraded battle matrix of the rocks, they would still forcefully break through it. The history of the Lost Clan was indeed admirable. The ancient god clan respected them for it, but they would go all out in battle when faced with such formidable opponents. The ancient god clan would not show them mercy. Of course, the most important point was that the formidable power demonstrated by the Lost Clan piqued their curiosity. They were even more determined to have a look inside the cave. When Futian heard the other party's response, he was certain that they would not give up on this battle. Moreover, the other party regarded the 8 of them as the representatives of the 8 major factions of the ancient god clan, essentially excluding him from the lineup. The speaker ignored Futian's existence and claimed that even with only the 8 of them, they would still be able to break through the battle matrix of the rocks. The cultivators of the Lost Clan also heard this conversation. Outside the battlefield, the elder of the Lost Clan glanced at Futian with a shocked expression. It seemed like this Futian was siding with their Lost Clan. Moreover, based on what he had said just now, the elder guessed that Futian had understood his intention. Actually, the Lost Clan had no desire to obtain the techniques cultivated by the cultivators from the other worlds. Since the rest of them are not willing to compromise, Renhuangyi doesn't need to advise them anymore, said the elder of the Lost Clan. Hua Junlai cast a glance at the elder. Then, he said, let us continue. After he said this, the 8 powerful cultivators once again amassed a strong force. At this moment, on the battlefield, there seemed to be a real halo of the great emperor shining. The 8 powerful cultivators were all, without exception, the successors of the ancient god clan. Their families had inheritances of the great emperors. They were also top figures in their families. Hence, all of them had inherited the powers of the great emperors. Futian was shocked when he sensed the power gathered by the 8 of them. He glanced at the battle matrix of the rocks. He dared not predict the outcome of this battle. Would the power gathered by the 8 powerful cultivators succeed in breaking through the upgraded battle matrix of the rocks? Rumble. Terrifying sound thundered as a frenzied storm rampaged. The 8 powerful cultivators had once again attacked. Moreover, they had better control of their attack timing this time. All their attacks landed on the battle matrix of the rocks simultaneously. The Great Path was on the verge of collapsing the moment the attacks landed. The battle matrix of the rocks shook violently as cracks appeared on it. The illusory figures of the ancient gods seemed as though they would disintegrate into pieces at any moment. However, right now, the 9 great cultivators of the Lost Clan closed their eyes and put their hands together. Blood trickled down their bodies. Their blood appeared golden in color as it merged and flowed with the divine light. Red veins flowed over the cracks on the battle matrix of the rocks, fusing them together. The scene was appalling. Futian raised his head and looked at the matrix. Bloody marks appeared on the battle matrix of the rocks. He felt as though he could see similar scars appearing on the bodies of the 9 great cultivators of the Lost Clan. This battle matrix of the rocks was forged with their own flesh. Continue. Hua Junlai and the others showed no sign of ceasing. They continued attacking. As more and more ferocious attacks landed on the matrix, the bloody marks on it also increased. Soon, the red marks covered the entire sealed space. Aside from golden halos, the ancient gods were also covered with a layer of crimson shimmer. "Do all of you still want to continue this battle?" asked the elder of the Lost Clan as he looked at the cultivators who were trapped in the battle matrix of the rocks. No matter how sturdy the matrix was, it would still crumble in the end if the cultivators from the Divine Prefecture attacked it relentlessly. When that happened, the 9 cultivators from the Lost Clan would surely die. Even though the 9 of them were ready to sacrifice their lives to hold up the battle matrix of the rocks, it didn't mean that the Lost Clan was willing to let them die just like that. If the other party chose to retreat, they wouldn't have to go to such an extreme. "The matrix has yet to be broken. How can we stop?" replied Hua Junlai. Clearly, he intended to continue attacking until the matrix was broken. When the elder of the Lost Clan heard his words, he sighed internally. He glanced in the direction of the battle matrix of the rocks. Among the battle matrix, the 9 cultivators still had their eyes closed. However, the divine light on their glabellas shone even more brilliantly. An unprecedented aura radiated from their figures. Futian frowned when he sensed the aura from the battle matrix of the rocks. He could faintly sense that a dangerous aura was approaching and was emanating from within the battle matrix. He looked at the 9 great cultivators of the Lost Clan and detected some changes happening to their figures. He was not the only one who sensed it. The other 8 powerful cultivators also sensed this change and frowned. The next moment, divine light filled the sky. The 9 great cultivators of the Lost Clan seemed to have activated all the cultivation that they had accumulated over their entire lifetimes. "This isn't good," said Futian as he realized something. Chapter 2336, Advocating Peace. Futian watched and noticed that as this dangerous aura permeated, the figures of the 9 cultivators from the Lost Clan gradually became more elusive. It was as if they were making an offering of sacrifice. But at the same time, a sense of destruction manifested within the battle matrix made up by the 9 of them, who had been passively defending until now. Hua Junlai and the others, strong as they were, could also feel an overwhelming crisis looming ahead. Instinct told them that it was dangerous and their lives may be threatened. Boom! An astonishing roar of the great path was heard as those figures of the ancient gods continued to grow and expand. Those previously benign ancient deities were now filled with fierce and menacing spirits. They transformed into vengeful gods. They looked down into the battle matrix at those 9 challengers and made no effort to disguise their murderous intent. At this moment, everyone realized that it was not that the cultivators of the Lost Clan were not experts in slaughtering offensive methods. It was simply that they were reluctant to use it. They had chosen to defend passively before because they didn't want this battle to create any further grievances. However, even though they tried their best to guard the battle matrix of the rocks, Hua Junlai and the others continued to press with their aggressive tactics and would not stop until they break down the battle matrix. If they continued their attack, it was just a matter of time before the battle matrix collapsed. The attacks of these 8 cultivators had already threatened the battle matrix of the rocks, and the outcome would be the total destruction of the battle matrix and the 9 cultivators of the Lost Clan along with it. Hua Junlai and the others would force their way into the heart of the Lost Clan's holy land and cultivate there. This was something that the Lost Clan could not accept, so their action of unleashing their lethal counterattacks was inevitable. Hua Junlai and his cohort had made a decision, and so did the Lost Clan. Since they were all going to die, why bother to maintain a semblance of mercy? This is crazy. The cultivators of the top principalities from Divine Prefecture scowled when they saw this latest development in the battlefield, especially those from the ancient God clan, whose cultivators were participating in the fight. Traces of aggressive aura erupted from them, covering the boundless space instantaneously. The air was so explosive that it could be ignited with just a turning of their minds. At the same time, Several powerful cultivators also stepped forward from the Lost Clan and released astonishing coercion that directly engaged the momentum of several top principalities from Divine Prefecture. Every one of them looked solemn. Their eyes showed their steely resolve. The cultivators from the Lost Clan had no fear in their eyes. They would do everything in their power to stay true to their beliefs, including sacrificing their own lives. With such an abundance of courage, what else did they need to fear? Having been in the darkness for so many years, now that the light was finally in sight, how could they fail at a time like this? The 9 cultivators on the battlefield were also living proofs of their beliefs, fighting without fear, all for protecting their continent. Futian saw this and thought that if this were to continue, both sides would probably suffer greatly. Even the 9 cultivators of the Lost Clan would probably die right on the spot. As for the people inside the battle matrix of the rocks, there was no telling what would happen to them, but it would definitely not be anything good. If they didn't die, they would certainly suffer grave injuries. At that time, when 2 uncontrollable sides go to war, the fighting would not be limited to the battlefield then, but would also spill over to the outside. Outside, there were already many kinds of tyrannical auras colliding with one another because the space outside the battlefield was equally intense, on the verge of total explosion. It seemed that a conflict might break out at any moment. If the strength of this battle matrix of the rocks had truly threatened the lives of the cultivators inside the formation, those top figures from the ancient god clan would, no doubt, intervene right away. After all, they were nothing like the Lost Clan. To those from the ancient god clan, there were not so many rules and restrictions to observe, and their attitude towards life was quite different from that of the Lost Clan. They didn't have to fight with their lives here. The cultivators inside the battle matrix of the rocks were the top enchanting geniuses from their clan, and the heir of the ancient god clan was amongst them. This battle was already an unequal affair. The Lost Clan had always been in an absolutely passive position. They had to desperately defend themselves, while the ancient god clan didn't need to. That destructive coercion was getting stronger, with a terrifying might. All the ancient gods incarnated as glaring deities. Bloody divine light shot out from their eyes with horrific murderous intent. The rumbling sound came out as frightening golden divine light raging in this battlefield space, and every trace of divine light seemed to contain amazingly destructive power. Hua Junlai and others deployed a protective divine light to block the impact of this golden light. However, at this time, the depressive aura became so dominant that the entire space had been imprisoned, and those within it could hardly move their bodies. Kill. A cold, murderous intent flashed across Hua Junlai and the others' eyes, accompanied with a look of determination. It had become challenging for them to move at will, but an absolute divine brilliance of the great path erupted above them. They advanced slowly towards those ancient gods, moving in for the fatal blow. Bang, bang, bang. Astonishing attacks fell as cracks appeared on the bodies of those ancient god clan. Boom. At the same time, a loud crash was heard, and the void seemed to be shattering and pulverizing as Hua Junlai and the others let out a low groan. The 9 cultivators from the Lost Clan seemed to have forgotten themselves, burning themselves up while their strength was still increasing. The attacks from both sides stuck together, and no one was willing to back down. This would only end when one side was destroyed. At this time, Futian moved, and an astonishing violent sound erupted from his divine body of the Great Path. The booming of the Great Path continued without ceasing, and the sword will roared. He moved forward like a sword himself, stepping into the void, in the midst of the enormous oppression of the battle matrix, inching closer to the battlefield. Gradually, his speed was getting faster. His body transformed into the way, like an indestructible divine sword. He descended as a stream of light and directly blasted on the battle matrix of the rocks. In an instant, fissures appeared on the battle matrix. A painful expression appeared on the Lost Clan cultivators' faces, but they still didn't waver. Futian's sword will was getting stronger, as that power penetrated everything and attacked the formation. When he beheld this sight, Hua Junlai and the others had a look of satisfaction on their faces. Finally, Futian made his move. Break the battle matrix, Hua Junlai offered. How about stopping right here, right now? Futian looked inside the battle matrix of the rocks. His eyes seemed to penetrate through it, landing on those 9 powerful cultivators from the Lost Clan. Although the 9 still had their eyes closed, at this moment, Futian felt as if he was facing them, conversing with them. Was it too late to stop now? If they stop, would these cultivators from Divine Prefecture stop? It's not worth it for a fight. Both sides can take a step back. Let's consider this a tie, Futian suggested. Outside, when the old man from the Lost Clan saw this, his attention drifted towards Futian's location. Previously, he was a little surprised when Futian made his move. He thought that Futian would break up the matrix himself, but now it seemed that he wanted to advocate peace instead. The thing was, how could it be as simple as he thought? It was the people from Divine Prefecture who refused to give up. It's not the Lost Clan who won't let go, said the elder of the Lost Clan, who was on the outside. If they refuse to quit, I will leave it alone and let you deal with them, and they can be responsible for what happens after, Futian continued. His words drew the attention of Hua Junlai and the others as they looked at him with some frostiness. Chapter 23:37 Reluctance. Futian's words seemed to have a deterrent effect on both sides. Of course, this was made possible by his own tyrannical combat effectiveness. Futian's attack seemed to have threatened the battle matrix of the rocks. This battle matrix may have been broken up had he continued with the attacks, resulting in the death of these cultivators from the Lost Clan, which would directly threaten the stability of the Lost Clan. If he stepped back now and chose not to participate, then the cultivators from the Lost Clan would continue their own attack. It was possible that the 8 cultivators from Divine Prefecture would be slaughtered. In short, there would be casualties on both sides. Therefore, at this moment, Futian seemed to be playing a key role in deterring both sides. He had the ability to advocate a truce. The Lost Clan had to agree, and so did the cultivators from Divine Prefecture, or else he would stop running the interference. However, the 8 cultivators from the ancient God Clan did not express any gratitude for Futian's suggestion. On the contrary, their eyes were icy when Hua Junlai asked, Emperor Yi, did you forget the reason why you were in the battle matrix of the rocks? Futian was invited by him to break up the formation. Now, what was this that he was doing? He seemed to have forgotten which side he belonged to. If Futian still remembered the reason he was here, then he should break up the formation with them, not uttering another word. But obviously, Futian didn't come here to break up the battle matrix of the rocks. And now, the cultivators from Divine Prefecture were unsure of what Futian had in mind. Or what was it that he wanted? They thought that for cultivators who had reached this level, everything that they chose to do must have sufficient reasons so that they could convince themselves of their own purpose. But from Futian, they had not seen any evidence of this yet. You were invited to join us to break the battle matrix of the rocks, which you have clearly forgotten. Do you have any sense of propriety? Another cultivator from the ancient God Clan asked, sounding displeased with strong resentment. If you gentlemen wish to continue, I will have no choice but to withdraw. Futian didn't respond to the man who spoke, but his response, in turn, caused the cultivators from the ancient God Clan to look quite uncertain. Their attacks were strong enough to shake the battle matrix of the rocks in its ultimate configuration, which was the rocks forged by flesh and blood. However, when the cultivators of the Lost Clan were burning themselves up, even powerful existence like them could sense the great danger that was afoot. If Futian withdrew, it was still the strongest blow dealt by the 8 cultivators from Divine Prefecture to the cultivators from the Lost Clan. No one dared to predict what the outcome would be. They themselves would be in the same predicament where their chance of survival would be unknown. This was a tremendous gamble, wagering their own lives. With their status and positions today, were they willing to die here like this? Clearly, it was not a risk that they would take on easily or willingly. Their goal was to provoke Futian into taking action, but no one expected that Futian not only failed to obey, but was using it as an opportunity to blackmail them into giving up, knowing very well that his inaction would spell disastrous consequences for all those who chose to continue in the battle. All eyes were focused on Futian. After a while, Hua Junlai, with eyes so frosty, glanced at Futian and addressed the Lost Clan. In this case, will the cultivators from the Lost Clan agree to stop fighting at this point? Hua Junlai's words suddenly relaxed the suffocating coercion that had permeated this space. Now that he had posed the question, It was obvious that he intended to give it up and not gamble with their own lives. With their status and positions, there was no need to fight to the death with the Lost Clan. The cultivators from the Lost Clan were willing to protect their cave's holy land with their lives, but their opponents did not have the same resolve, unwilling to risk their lives or inconvenience themselves in the slightest. That aura served as a warning of any potential threats. Yes, the old man from the Lost Clan said. Unless it was the last resort, why would he order the 9 cultivators from the Lost Clan to fight to the death, all at the same time? Once this final blow was delivered, there would be no retreat. The 9 cultivators from the Lost Clan would die, but their opponents would also pay an equally tragic price. They were forced by the situation. If the Lost Clan did not demonstrate the ruthless measures they were willing to take, there would be other battles to fight in the future. His voice fell, and the divine light began to flow backward, gradually dissipating. Suddenly, the figures of the 9 cultivators from the Lost Clan started to solidify, gradually became clear. However, they seemed to have expanded quite a lot of their own life force as they appeared a little tired. Clearly, they had been weakened quite considerably. Both sides pulled back at the same time. This battle seemed to have ended there. As the two sides pulled away from each other, they fell into a short silence without exchanging words. However, solemnity and oppression could still be felt in the aura of the great path that lingered in the space. This exchange is considered a draw. There is no winner or loser. The old man from the Lost Clan spoke up, but no one responded. The entire space was still frightfully suppressed. At this moment, Hua Junlai turned around, and his cold gaze fell on Futian. His white robe fluttered in the wind, and there were wisps of chill engraved on his face. "Don't you want to explain?" Hua Junlai asked coldly. If Futian had not deliberately done this, they might have been victorious. Their attack was so close to breaking the battle matrix of the rocks. Obviously, Futian could deliver the final coup de grace but deliberately withheld, even using it to threaten them. He didn't fault the cultivators from the Lost Clan. It was a gamble and battle between the two sides. However, in his opinion, Futian had betrayed them. Perhaps Emperor Yi will be able to cultivate in the caves of the Lost Clan in the near future. Another sarcastic remark was heard from another cultivator of the ancient God Clan. They were already a little irritated when Futian was participating in the battle, not to mention everything that had happened afterward. "I don't want to see anyone get hurt. The continuation of that fight will not benefit either the Lost Clan or any of you. It was just a friendly exchange. No need to pay such a dear price for something so trivial." Futian looked at Hua Junlai as he responded. "Really? Has Emperor Yi never heard of do what you agreed to do?" Obviously, Hua Junlai refused to accept Futian's explanation. If Futian was reluctant to make a move against the Lost Clan, he didn't have to agree to participate in the first place. However, since he did, he should have done all that he could to help them succeed. Not only did Futian fail to do that, but he even refused to make a move and threatened them with his inaction. If he had picked someone else instead of choosing Futian, would the outcome be any different? Could they have broken the battle matrix of the rocks by now? "What do you want?" Futian frowned. Wisps of great path coercion spread out from Hua Junlai's body and directly suppressed upon him. It seemed that Hua Junlai wanted to challenge him, and Hua Junlai was not alone. Other cultivators from Divine Prefecture were also staring him down, and some even took a few steps toward him. The same elusive aura fell on him as well, as if they, too, wanted to take action against him. Clearly, these cultivators were unhappy with him. Futian looked at Hua Junlai and the other 7 cultivators. He said, "My actions are indeed inappropriate. I didn't think things through before agreeing to join the team. However, even if I go all out, I'm not confident that I'll surely be able to shatter the battle matrix of the rocks. The outcome of this battle is uncertain regardless. Even if we manage to break through, who can guarantee that we will come out unscathed?" With a clear and sincere voice, Futian continued, "The cultivators of the Lost Clan are willing to risk their lives to uphold the battle matrix of the rocks. This act is admirable. I admit that I have a soft spot for them. Therefore, the Heavenly Mandate Academy and I will give up on this mission. We will not attack the Lost Clan. We will also give up on the chance of cultivating in the cave of the Lost Clan. We will not loot the treasures that belong to them. He agreed to join the battle, yet he couldn't give his best while the two parties were fighting. He was naturally at fault. However, he did so because he was impressed by everything that the Lost Clan did. So, he didn't want to go to such extremes. You will give up on the chance to cultivate in the cave? Reiterated a cultivator of the ancient god clan mockingly. With this gesture, the Lost Clan will most likely treat you as an honorable guest. They might invite you to cultivate in their secret zone after the battle is over. Clearly, the ancient god clan cultivators thought that Futian was trying to curry favor with the Lost Clan. Futian gave the speaker a disdainful sideways glance. He said indifferently, "What plane have you reached? And what plane have I reached?" Frowning, the other party stared at Futian. He was an 8th-tier Renhuang, while Futian was a 7th-tier Renhuang. You can't break through the matrix. On the other hand, I am confident to challenge this 7th-tier battle matrix of the rocks. If I join forces with other people, do you think that I will fail? Futian retorted. What he meant was that if he were really interested in cultivating in the secret zone of the Lost Clan, he would have earned the right to do so fair and square by breaking through the battle matrix of the rocks. Futian's words also served to declare to the other party that just because the latter couldn't break through the matrix, it didn't mean that Futian couldn't too. It wouldn't be a surprise to anyone if Futian managed to break through the matrix with his cultivation at the 7th-tier Renhuang plane. After all, Futian's combat ability was enough for him to contend with the top monstrous figures who were at the 8th tier. You can't tell for sure. The other 8 cultivators were somewhat doubtful. Even though Futian was indeed very powerful, it was still not an easy task to want to break through the battle matrix of the rocks. However, Xiaomu from the Devil World believed in Futian's words. Since Futian could defeat him, it was most likely possible for him to break through the matrix forged by the 7th-tier cultivators from the Lost Clan. After all, the difference between each tier was enormous when cultivators reached Futian's and Xiaomu's level. Renhuang Yi is full of compassion, praised the elder of the Lost Clan. He then declared, "The Lost Clan is glad to befriend Renhuang Yi." "Senior, many thanks," responded Futian as he looked at the other party. Since the Shini continent has come to the region of the original realm, it's now part of the original realm and the divine prefecture. The Lost Clan should be allowed to exist here as an independent clan. This continent has been through countless challenges before it finally emerged from the void. I hope that the seniors from the divine prefecture can take this into consideration. The Shini continent had now drifted into the space of the original realm. Since the original realm was part of the divine prefecture, Futian recognized the Lost Clan to be under the jurisdiction of the divine prefecture. In that case, the Lost Clan could be considered an independent faction of the divine prefecture. Unfortunately, even though Futian's friendliness towards the Lost Clan caused him to win their favor, it also caused him to offend all the cultivators from the ancient god clan. Futian's readiness to accept the Lost Clan formed a stark contrast with the actions of the ancient god clan. He made them seem despicable. Was Futian using the ancient god clan to establish a good connection with the Lost Clan? Hua Junlai's gaze was fixed on Futian. A majestic might of the great path emanated from him and pressured Futian. Hua Junlai's white robes fluttered in the wind. His aura churned and grew more frightening. He took a step forward and said, "Renhuang Yi, your words exemplify your noble character. Now you make it seem that we are the ones who are despicable. I invited you to join our party because I have heard that you have an exceptional temperament and have acquired the inheritances of a few great emperors. However, up until now, I have yet to see you attacking. Since that's the case, I have no choice but to personally test out your ability." Hua Junlai intended to attack Futian. As soon as he said this, a menacing aura burst forth. His might descended upon Futian. An illusory figure of a god appeared. It was as though Haotian the Great was reincarnated into the present. Hua Junlai stood in front of the illusory figure of the great emperor. He was akin to the successor of the god. His charisma was unparalleled. "Since you want to get a taste of my power, I have no choice but to oblige your request," responded Futian. His figure shot up to the sky like a meteorite. In an instant, he appeared high above in the sky. Hua Junlai also flew up to the sky. The two of them stared at each other from across the space. Their auras of the great path churned and roared. Their might spanned across the entire region. They seemed to be contending to be the ruler of this part of the sky. Hua Junlai raised his arm. Similarly, the illusory figure of the god raised his arm. Their movements were in sync. They sent out a palm strike. In an instant, the great path thundered, and the heavens and the earth shook. A gigantic palm directly descended upon Futian. Far in the distance, Futian felt as though the sky was collapsing. The entire sky transformed into a gigantic palm that was charging towards him. He had nowhere to hide. The entire space of the great path was within the attack range of this gigantic palm. Besides that, endless destructive divine light flowed around the palm. It was as though the will of Futian the Great had been infused in the divine light. It would destroy everything along its path. Buzz. The fatal gigantic palm plunged downwards, eradicating every speck of existence along its way. Rumbling sounds rang. It was the reverberation of the great path emanating from Futian's body. Divine light burst forth from his body. It was likewise infused with imperial glory. The will of the great emperor could still boost his ability now, but its effect was not as strong as it was in the past. After all, Futian was already approaching the peak of the Renhuang Plain. Futian pointed a finger upward. Instantly, alarming sounds buzzed, and a myriad of starry divine swords shot upwards. They clashed with the descending gigantic palm. Bang, bang, bang. Shocking collisions echoed continuously. Each and every divine sword collided forcefully with the palm. Cracks immediately appeared on the gigantic palm. Then, the palm and the starry divine swords disintegrated into pieces together. Everything turned into dust. Far in the distance, Hua Junlai floated in the high heavens. He was at a higher position than Futian. He was not as naive as to think that he could defeat Futian with a single attack. After all, the other party was also a formidable existence that ruled over an entire realm. He looked down at the silhouette below. A vast heavenly might burst forth from his figure. The silhouette of the great emperor behind him made it seem as though Futian the Great had truly descended upon the world. He himself was a descendant of Futian the Great and had inherited the will of the great emperor. Down below, where the lost clan was, the various cultivators looked up at the battle high in the sky. Their hearts stirred slightly. Before this, Hua Junlai was trapped within the battle matrix of the rocks and could not go all out. He had been heavily restricted. He most likely felt aggravated over this. At this moment, in his battle with Futian, he could finally unleash his combat ability completely. This powerful existence of the ancient god clan versus the young ruler of the original realm. Who was stronger? Chapter 2339, Clash and Smash. After the destructive current dissipated, Futian raised his head and looked up. Hua Junlai was standing in the high heavens and was looking down on him like a deity. After taking a glance at Hua Junlai, Futian felt as though the entire world had changed. The heaven and the earth around him were no longer that of before. Instead, he was trapped in a world enveloped by the will of Futian the Great. Right above his head stood the figure of the great emperor. The sensation he felt was similar to that when he became one with the stars in the starry cultivation court and saw the figure of great Emperor Ziwei. It seemed like the other parties had overtaken this part of the sky and transformed it into his domain of the great path. Streaks of divine light shone down from the illusory figure of Futian the Great. The might pressed downwards. At this moment, Futian could sense a domineering will pressuring down on him. It was akin to the will of a god, causing him to gasp for air. As a successor of the ancient god clan, Hua Junlai was undoubtedly an extraordinary figure. The pressure Futian felt now was on par with that when he was facing Xiao Mu. For Hua Junlai to enjoy his current status, he would most likely be one of the strongest cultivators in the Futian clan. He was definitely at the top. Otherwise, it was impossible for him to have such status. When he was in the original realm, his will symbolized the will of the Futian clan. Futian, do you admit to your wrongdoing? A voice called out. It rang in Futian's ears as though a heavenly might had descended. It caused the space to tremble and could shake the spiritual souls of those around and affect their wills. It was as though a deity was questioning him. The voice contained the law of the great path. Admit to my wrongdoing? Yi Futian looked up at the illusory figure of Haoyan the Great in the sky. This was an illusion created by Hua Junlai, relying on the will of Haoyan the Great to pressure him. It felt as though it was really the will of Haoyan the Great passing judgment on all that Yi Futian had done. A cold and indifferent look flashed past in Yi Futian's eyes. He bore a look of arrogance. Yet alone the will of Haoyan the Great, even if the other party had completely inherited the teachings of Haoyan the Great and wanted to pressure him into submission, he would not be able to do so. Beams of divine light that filled the sky radiated from Yi Futian's figure as he stood in the air. Endless divine halos burst forth from his divine body of the great path, which was akin to that of a deity. He was too dazzling to behold. At the same time, various stars appeared in his surroundings and circled him. A towering illusory figure of a deity appeared. It was the silhouette of great Emperor Ziwei. Hua Junlai wanted to pressure him with just a mere sliver of the will of Haoyan the Great. Back in the day, Great Emperor Ziwei was one of the most prominent great emperors. Yi Futian was his heir. He had unraveled the mystery of Great Emperor Ziwei in the starry world and now inherited his will. He would not allow such blasphemy. Brilliant divine halos shone. Two extremely powerful wills clashed. Even though the heavenly might that filled the sky circled around him, Yi Futian still stood there motionlessly. Even if I had committed any wrongdoings, since when were you qualified to pass judgment on me? Replied Yi Futian imposingly. Even if Hua Junlai was a descendant of the ancient god clan, what of it? Hua Junlai actually asked Yi Futian whether or not he admitted to his wrongdoing. Although Yi Futian felt somewhat apologetic, it was because he had hurriedly agreed to the other party's request without thinking things through. Otherwise, if he knew what would happen after, he would not have formed an alliance with the other party. It was as though there were two great emperors on the battlefield. Both of them contained menacing wills. They also seemed to be staring at each other from across the space. They were Haoyan the Great and Great Emperor Ziwei. Both great emperors had unparalleled temperament. In the sky above, Hua Junlai looked down as he raised his arm. A terrifying pressure permeated across the space. The next moment, a gigantic palm smacked downwards. In an instant, the sky tore apart while the earth quaked. Frightening rumbling sounds echoed. The entire sky seemed to have ruptured. The palm eradicated everything that crossed its path. This gigantic palm spanned across this part of the sky. The palm was boundless and could destroy everything. No matter where one ran to, one couldn't possibly escape from its attack range. This was the art of supreme attack of the Haoyan clan, the Haoyan Madra. As soon as Hua Junlai attacked, he revealed his intention of ending the battle with a single blow. He was set to destroy Yi Futian without any mercy. Clearly, he had a lot of pent-up anger for not being able to break through the battle matrix of the rocks earlier. Hence, he intended to vent his anger by killing Yi Futian with a single strike. At the same time, when Hua Junlai unleashed his attack, starlight flowed around Yi Futian, and the stars became one. Great Emperor Ziwei's figure and Yi Futian's figure overlapped and merged. A myriad of starry divine swords shot out. As sturdy as stone pillars, the swords blasted towards the descending gigantic palm. Bang! The Haoyan Madra continued to press down on him. Everything in its path was destroyed. The starry divine swords were similarly turned to dust. It seemed as though no power could withstand the Haoyan Madra. Buzz! Starlight gathered on his body. Yi Futian appeared like a great emperor reborn. He was majestic. All around him, countless starry divine swords shot up towards the Haoyan Madra in the sky. It was as though countless rock pillars were pummeling the Haoyan Madra. Although they were being destroyed at a frenzied pace, they still managed to hold back its descent. At the same time, amidst endless divine light, Yi Futian's figure immediately shot up into the sky. He raised his arms, and the endless power of the great path emanated from within his body, forming a gigantic starry divine sword. It was as though the divine sword and his figure had merged. It directly attacked the Haoyan Madra. Right then, cracks appeared on the Haoyan Madra. Then, it shattered at a rapid pace. Bang! With a huge thud, the Haoyan Madra shattered into pieces. However, the starry divine sword similarly crumbled away. Yi Futian's figure continued rising up. He charged through the Futian Madra, becoming a light beam of swordsmanship that shot straight towards Hua Junlai. He was extremely fast. When the various cultivators witnessed this scene, they narrowed their gazes. Yi Futian's flesh and body were terrifyingly powerful. Was he planning to fight Hua Junlai up close? For cultivators at their level, the attack range of any of their blows spanned across the entire space. There was no need for them to engage in close combat. Furthermore, close combat was more dangerous than attacking from far anyway. Shimmering with imperial glory, Yi Futian charged towards Hua Junlai in the blink of an eye. The great path roared in his body. Hua Junlai showed no sign of fear when he saw Yi Futian pounce onto him. He didn't dodge. The imperial glory of the great emperor enveloped his body. Both his hands were permeated with a menacing aura as he was ready to unleash the Madra. When Yi Futian got closer, Hua Junlai slammed both his hands downwards. The Futian Madra erupted with a terrifying might. The two clashed head-on. Yi Futian's flesh was as sharp as a sword. The power of Yin and the solar power burst forth from his body simultaneously. He seemed to have transformed into a blade as he collided with Hua Junlai's palms. The sky seemed as though it would collapse at any moment. The terrifying storm of the great path spiraled outwards. The two of them actually engaged in close combat. They tanked each other's attacks with their flesh. They exchanged blow after blow, showing no sign of stopping. The various cultivators looked towards the battlefield. Many people down below released the power of the great path to block off the residue shockwaves. Terrifying storms swept out in the sky above, enveloping the vast space. The space seemed to be collapsing from the battle. The cultivators noticed that Hua Junlai's condition felt off. He seemed to be expending more and more of his strength. In the end, a huge explosion could be heard. Hua Junlai's figure was sent flying outwards. With a dull groan, he spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. Chapter 2340, Total Aggression. Yi Futian stood above the firmament while Hua Junlai had been blasted to the ground below. The positions of the two seemed to have been reversed. The top figures of the various forces were below, watching the battlefield in the void intently, and their hearts were disquieted. Hua Junlai of the Futian clan was crushed by Yi Futian from the original realm. In this powerful confrontation, Hua Junlai suffered major blows that wounded him. Obviously, the physical strength of the two was not at the same level. Yi Futian was far superior to Hua Junlai. After all, Yi Futian was only Runhuang in the 7th realm, while Hua Junlai was a Runhuang in the 8th realm. Hua Junlai getting crushed so badly suggested that there must have been a considerable discrepancy between them. At present, Yi Futian stood high above the sky, with divine light surrounding his body of the great path. His appearance made him look invincible. It was as if the real great emperor himself had truly descended amongst the world. Yi Futian had always prided himself as possessing the divine body of the heavenly path. And at this moment, his physical body was truly astounding. This physical body was formed based on the comprehension he received from the divine body of Shunjia, the great emperor. Hua Junlai did not give up after being blasted down to the ground below. He raised his head and scanned for Yi Futian, who was above the sky. His eyes were cold, and murderous intent was blazing inside of him. Rays of divine light came down from the outer sky and fell upon him. That divine shadow became clearer now. It was as if Futian the Great had reincarnated with him. Suddenly ethereal voices were heard between heaven and earth, and a terrible rumbling sound came out. The storm of the great path was raging madly within this boundless void and shrouding it. Above the firmament, an elusive shadow appeared, and it was the phantom of Futian the Great. It seemed as if this corner of the world was the realm belonging to the great emperor, created by Futian the Great. Hua Junlai was condensing the seal with his hands, and suddenly the phantoms of the great emperors in the heavens were doing the same at the same time. It was as if reflected by many mirrors of the same movements. It was as if there were only the existence of this divine seal in all of the world. The cultivators from Futian clan looked at the battlefield but did not interfere. Even if Yi Futian had the upper hand, he would not dare to harm Hua Junlai. Furthermore, Yi Futian's superior power would serve as a challenge for Hua Junlai. Although they were unhappy with Yi Futian, it did not change the fact that Yi Futian was a great opponent. His combat effectiveness was not inferior to the enchanting geniuses from ancient god clan. His strength was most formidable. Boom! An astonishing sound came out as Yi Futian's body of the great path roared and howled. Above the heavens, a starry sky world appeared, with countless stars circulating about. The sun and the moon hung high in the sky, sprinkling endless divine light that illuminated the stars. It was like an entirely independent world on its own. This force then collided with the phantoms in the heavens as if they were vying for control of this corner of the sky. Buzz. When the light of the sun and the moon sprinkled down, the stars were circulating. Each of the stars was rotating around this space, centered around Yi Futian's position. They were spinning faster and faster as the world howled. In this rotating starry world, every one of the stars contained unparalleled prowess. Under the illumination of so much divine lights which fell upon Yi Futian, who was in the center of it all. Yi Futian of this moment was like the absolute ruler of this world, the king of the sun and the moon, the lord of the stars and master of the starry rules. The phantom of Ziwei the Great appeared, descended upon the world and merged with Yi Futian. Faintly, the will of the great emperor descended into this world, pressed down with his might, coexisting with the will of Haotian the Great in this world at the same time. By comparison, the imperial glory from Haotian the Great dimmed alongside the overpowering will in the surrounding space. Is this the power inherited from Ziwei the Great? The cultivators below wondered when they saw this sight before them. Ziwei the Great had been one of the most powerful great emperors in ancient times, who was in charge of Ziwei Segmentum. He was the god of the stars, who controlled the rules of the starry great path. At this time, they could detect this kind of rule power from Yi Futian. The rotation of the stars in heaven seemed to become more and more ethereal. Hua Junlai looked up and saw the magnificent spectacle in the void. At this moment, in his heart, he had lost the confidence he possessed previously. The arrogance in his eyes didn't seem to be there anymore. He seemed to finally realize that this king of the original realm, who was of the seventh realm, had far superior combat effectiveness. A touch of reluctance flashed through his eyes as Hua Junlai formed the Haotian seal to attack. The heavens boomed as countless divine seals blasted down at the same time to smash through this corner of the sky, aiming toward Yi Futian. But at this time, the stars surrounding Yi Futian flowed frantically, forming an absolute enclosed space. When the divine seals in the heaven blasted down, heaven and earth shattered, while the violent roars shook this space. A terrifying storm destroyed everything and radiated toward the infinite space, spreading further into the distance. However, even though many of the stars that flowed around Yi Futian's body had been destroyed, more of them continued to pour out according to their own rules, and an even more radiant divine light bloomed from that starry sky world. Those sharp eyes from Yi Futian swept across the surrounding heaven and earth. He then raised his hand to point towards the void, and the stars began flowing, rushing towards the surrounding sky and earth. Bang, bang, bang. The terrifying sound caused heaven and the earth to collapse, along with those elusive imperial shadows. The starlight connected as one, as if carrying the divine light from the sun and the moon to destroy all those imperial shadows. Soon, all the imperial shadows shattered, and the great path domain of the other was pulverized. Yi Futian's body was shining with brilliance. It was like the great emperor had descended into the world. He looked at Hua Junlai below and pointed with his raised hand. Suddenly, a starry divine sword penetrated the void, overcame everything. Hua Junlai blasted out the divine seal, but it was for naught. The starry divine sword, carrying tremendous momentum, arrived in front of Hua Junlai in an instant. Boom! An extremely terrifying storm swept out, and the starry divine sword stopped in front of Hua Junlai. That terrifying storm of destruction buffeted Hua Junlai so that his white robe fluttered wildly in the winds, and his long hair danced with menace. Hua Junlai's eyes were open, fixed on the divine sword that hung above his head, which nearly killed him. There was some sadness in his eyes. Not only was he defeated, but he was defeated miserably. Before, His combat had been boosted by the eruption of the great emperor's will. But when Futian called upon the will of the great emperor, he could not stop his attacks. Futian, who had inherited the will of Ziwei the Great, was far stronger than they had ever imagined. At this moment, many cultivators remembered what Futian said before. If he wanted to cultivate in the holy land of the Lost Clan, he could have simply broken the matrix all by himself. There was no need to resort to other means to placate the Lost Clan. He could break down the battle matrix of the rocks set up by the cultivators in the 7th realm from the Lost Clan. No one doubted Futian's claim at this moment as he displayed his battle effectiveness. They believed he could achieve what he said he could. Futian looked at Hua Junlai as he waved his hand. The divine sword flew back to him and didn't slay Hua Junlai after all. He didn't really want to kill Hua Junlai. They were not sworn enemies, and there were no major grudges between them. Do not do to others what you do not want others to do to you. Had this Shunny continent been a land without a master, with no one in control, it would not matter who tried to take it for themselves. But the Lost Clan had been established on this continent, and has guarded the continent for many years. No one should try to take that away from them. It is not just, Futian proclaimed loudly and clearly. However, those cultivators from other top forces were unmoved by what he said. They had lived longer and experienced more. Many of them had lived through the turbulent Era 400 years ago and experienced firsthand the cruelty of the cultivation world. Futian was far too idealistic. The world of the cultivators was a ruthless one, and things such as pillage were commonplace. If one day they faced a similar situation, no one would pity them. They would make the same choice of robbing them of what they had. Chapter 2341. Tension. For Shiny Continent to have appeared in the original realm and demonstrate such astonishing strength, how could these top forces not have some designs of their own? Moreover, no one knew what was in the secret zone of the Lost Clan, but they estimated that there must be some worthwhile secrets to be had. For the Lost Clan to survive these long years and the Dark Ages, there must be methods other than those they had displayed. Just mind yourself and don't worry about us. How we want to do things is none of your concern. In the crowd, a scratchy old voice, tinged with indifference, was berating Futian. Even though Futian's current status was lofty, and he had demonstrated extremely powerful combat effectiveness, the cultivators who were present were no small figures. Aside from the top principalities from Divine Prefecture, many of them were at the top of the cultivation world. There was no lack of those who had passed the divine tribulation of the Great Path with the ancient God Clan on their side. And this was only those from Divine Prefecture. In addition to Divine Prefecture, there were also top figures from the Dark World, Human Realm, and other realms, with Imperial-level forces personally representing. No matter how closely such lineups were to be scrutinized, Futian, at the very most, was just as a rising star. No matter how outstanding he was just a young upstart. Futian's attempt to dissuade everyone's plan about the Lost Clan was really overestimating his own influence. It was just as that old man had suggested, how these top forces decided to conduct their own business, needing no direction from Futian. "Go back," said another voice, still directed at Futian, urging him to stand down. Although he had defeated and crushed Hua Junlai from the ancient God Clan, it only proved that he had what it took to enter the secret zone of the Lost Clan. However, Futian's status was far from sufficient to keep a lid on the whole situation. Not just him. No one here could stop the development of the situation at hand. Futian looked at the crowd and sighed inside. In fact, he knew very well that he could not alter things very much. After all, the forces who were here today were almost the very top forces in each of the known worlds. His own influence fell short by comparison and was not enough to change much. But looking at how things were playing out, any continuation would only cause harm to both sides until the two sides launched a full-on war. This thing had its own momentum that could not be stopped now. He had wanted to give it his best shot, but it was of no use. Emperor Yi is righteous, and the Lost Clan is most grateful. But today's matter has nothing to do with Emperor Yi. Since everyone who came here refused to give up, we have no choice but to continue. Emperor Yi should not insist on interceding further. Of course, the Lost Clan is most willing to make friends with Emperor Yi. The old man from the Lost Clan spoke with some heartfelt gratitude towards Futian. Besieged by all these principalities, only Futian was willing to speak up for them. Furthermore, he had the ability to break down the Lost Clan's battle matrix of the rocks but didn't. Obviously, he had no intention to rob them of the secret zone and their cultivation methods. True gentlemen harbored no ill will. Futian was probably a good example of that saying. However, since the Lost Clan came out of the infinite darkness and drifted to the original realm, they were destined to experience this trial. If they did not endeavor to survive it, how could they possibly enjoy any peace in the future? To gain a foothold in the original realm, they must first overcome this challenge. If they did, then no one would dare to provoke them with impunity in the future. All the top powers of the world would have to weigh the matter carefully before they had any thoughts of challenging the Lost Clan again. However, they were facing a real catastrophe this time. What was at stake could not be more important to them all, and there was no guarantee whether they would survive it or not. Futian looked at the old man from the Lost Clan and nodded slightly. Then he moved towards the ground below with no intention of lingering any longer. He could not change much anyways. Everything would have to depend on the Lost Clan themselves now. The old man from the Lost Clan surveyed the crowd and said, according to the previous agreement, the losers must hand over to Lost Clan the cultivation methods used during the battle to be kept in the secret zone caves, where they will be enshrined for future generations of the Lost Clan to cultivate. Previous battles have already determined many victories and defeats. Those who had lost, please hand over the cultivation methods you used on the Lost Clan. Futian, who had just returned to the group from Heavenly Mandate Academy, sharpened his eyes as he turned to look in the direction of the old man. What was this sudden change of attitude? The words from the old man obviously meant that he was getting more assertive. He began to demand the price the opponent had promised to pay if they were defeated. However, many in the crowd understood that this was simply a price these opponents could not afford to pay. For instance, would Xiao Mu, the direct disciple of the Devil Emperor, hand over the 9 slashes of the heavenly demon and the super demonic form? It was completely an impossibility. The Devil Emperor would probably end this idiotic disciple's life before that happens. Because of his lack of ability, he was defeated and lost the method taught by the Devil Emperor himself in a wager. The same held true for other cultivators. What they had used before were the unique methods of their respective clan forces, but they were unsuccessful in breaking down the battle matrix of the rocks. Now, the Lost Clan cultivators were asking for their cultivation methods. How could they hand them over just like that? No one spoke, and the space seemed a little too quiet. Those cultivators who were defeated seemed to look in other directions, looking at other people, to see who would take the initiative to do anything. Watching this, the old man understood how this would play out. He actually had no intention of asking for the cultivation methods of these top principalities. He knew very well that such request was impossible for them to comply. He did it to force these invaders to consider from the standpoint of the Lost Clan. Just like them, the Lost Clan would never allow outside cultivators to enter their secret zone. But the Lost Clan seemed to have underestimated the determination of these top cultivators. They seemed determined to gain entry to the secret zone of the Lost Clan no matter what. This was clearly evident from their previous action. If this was the case, there was no more need to continue being courteous. These defeated cultivators would either hand over what they had wagered, or it was going to be an all-out war. You are all cultivators from top principalities and top figures from all the worlds. Are you going to go back on your promises? Since you have been defeated, you should deliver what you promised. The old man of the Lost Clan continued, his voice indifferent but tranquil. The cultivators who were defeated previously looked on, still silent. In the direction of the Devil World, someone looked at the old man and said, even if the Devil World is willing to surrender them, does the Lost Clan have the gall to accept? Would the Lost Clan be so bold as to accept the cultivation method of the Devil Emperor? If they did that, they would undoubtedly offend the Devil Emperor themselves, but at the same time, would the Devil World let the Lost Clan off the hook? So, none of you intended to keep your promises from the very beginning. The cultivator from the Lost Clan continued, that is to say, you were lying to us right from the start. If you lost, you don't need to pay any penalty, but if you won, you wanted to have the right to enter our secret zone to cultivate. With such a rotten deal, Is there any need to continue talking about it? As his voice trailed off, the surrounding space suddenly quieted down. Aura from cultivators of all principalities spread to cover the void as an invisible pressure radiated outward. There was an extreme discomfort in the atmosphere, faintly suffocating. In the far distance, many Imperial-level cultivators walked in the direction of the Lost Clan, loosely forming a circle to surround the Lost Clan. They were powerful cultivators from all sides of the Shinny continent who came as reinforcement. Chapter 2342. Stance from all sides. In the vast space around the Lost Clan, the atmosphere became unbelievably oppressive. From the Lost Clan, out came mighty cultivators, with some standing guard on top of the buildings, their eyes fixed on the cultivators from various forces of the worlds. There was no fear in their eyes, and eyes like that instilled fear in those who saw them. The cultivators of the Lost Clan were not afraid of death. From the day that they entered the Lost Clan, they had prepared to sacrifice their lives at any moment and were ready to meet their deaths. As those cultivators continued to progress, the beliefs and courage that they held deep in their hearts had far surpassed their fear of death. Countless years they had walked during the Dark Ages, and there was nothing more that could make them afraid. Everything they were facing now was just a repeat of what they had experienced in the Dark Ages. Cultivators from all sides wore the most serious expressions on their faces. There was no lack of cultivators who were not afraid of death, and not all of them were so awe-inspiring. But at this level of cultivation, death was somewhat frightening in itself. Take, for instance, the 9 cultivators in the Lost Clan's battle matrix of the rocks. Any one of the 9 would be an awesome figure in the outside world. But in here, they were just a member of the Lost Clan who would rather die guarding the battle matrix. The power they were capable of exerting was so shocking that the 8 enchanting geniuses from the ancient God Clan could not break it. Had they continued, both sides may very well sustain grave casualties. Therefore, if they were really to go to war, they had no clear idea just how many methods were at the disposal of the Lost Clan. But judging from the fearless courage exhibited by the Lost Clan so far, they would probably slaughter as many of the cultivators as possible so that the outsiders would also pay dearly for their transgression. The Lost Clan came upon the original realm by chance, and it was not our intention to cause any trouble. All we wanted was to coexist in peace. That is why we have invited everyone to enter our secret zone as a gesture of goodwill. We have even allowed everyone to cultivate in our secret zone through friendly exchanges. There is no need now to speak openly about what you are really coveting in your hearts. If this is the case, we will protect the Lost Clan at any cost. If the Lost Clan is destroyed, so will the secret zone. No one would obtain any inheritance from the demise of the Lost Clan. The old man addressed everyone with a solemn voice, grave but powerful. Even if the Lost Clan were obliterated, none of the cultivators from those various forces would be able to claim anything from the Lost Clan for themselves. The Lost Clan would destroy the secret zone. People of the Lost Clan is faithful to our pledge. Protecting the Lost Clan with our lives, the old man continued as an even more solemn aura effused, enveloped the boundless space as invisible as the air. This atmosphere was formed by the common will of all the cultivators in the Lost Clan. Protecting the Lost Clan with our lives. Voices were heard, one after the other, resounding inside the Lost Clan. Protecting the Lost Clan with our lives. Outside the Lost Clan, those Renhuang cultivators who had arrived also reiterated the oath with one voice, sounding solemn. In an instant, a curious force filled the space between heaven and earth. As these voices continued to resonate, a shocking and oppressive ambience seemed to suffocate many cultivators inside the space. In the secret zone of the Lost Clan, cultivators began to walk out one after another, all with a frightening aura. Many of them were elders, and some looked much older, with wrinkles all over their faces. But their eyes were piercing, spirited, and full of power, zooming in on the cultivators from all sides. In their eyes, there was a great power that was palpable. The solemn voice and that astonishing air shrouded all the cultivators from various forces. No one dared to act carelessly. The cultivators from all sides had tested the strength of the Lost Clan before and knew they were incredibly strong. After they had gone through the previous exhibition fighting inside the battle matrix of the rocks, They had a much better understanding of the prowess the Lost Clan was capable of. At this moment, a group of cultivators took a few steps forward. These men had extraordinary and unparalleled temperaments, and a faint aura of righteousness could be perceived from them. The divine light that surrounded them gave an extremely pleasant feeling. Cultivators from the human realm. The man that was the head of the human realm congregation bowed slightly in the direction of the Lost Clan, who was in the distance, and said, "The Lost Clan has been protecting the Shuni continent for countless years to ensure its existence and deserves our utmost respect. The human realm will not be enemies with the Lost Clan, and we won't participate in any disputes and battles with the Lost Clan. The reason why we came here was the appearance of the relic. After learning so much about the Lost Clan, we have nothing but admiration for you." Human realm had forfeited. They chose not to take an opposing position against the Lost Clan. When the elder from the Lost Clan heard this, he made a bow with his hands together in front of him and said, "The Lost Clan thanks you for your kindness and righteousness. Emperor Yi from the original realm was right. Don't do unto others what we don't want to have done unto ourselves. Since Shuni continent has guardians for protection, there is no need to be so unrelenting and unreasonable. The Lost Clan is a principality that goes back to ancient times, and it is not easy for it to sustain its existence until this day. Why not just let the Lost Clan become a force in this world and cultivate?" A cultivator from the human realm continued to advocate and looked toward Futian while he was speaking. However, the dark world, the empty divine realm, and the devil world were quite unimpressed with the words and actions coming from the human realm. In their opinion, those from the human realm, like Futian, were just a bunch of sanctimonious fakes. But they had heard that this kind of behavior was not unusual in the human realm. They had proclaimed themselves to be the most orthodox heirs after the heavenly path, descendants of the human race, even naming the great emperor of the human realm as the human ancestor. "We didn't say the Lost Clan couldn't become a force in the cultivation world. We just wanted to enter their secret zone to take a look. There were no other intentions." But the Lost Clan couldn't even agree to such a simple request. "How can we be friends?" An incredibly wicked voice was speaking, and it belonged to a top figure from the empty divine realm. The empty divine realm was also known as the evil emperor realm. The master of the empty divine realm was called the evil emperor, and it goes without saying that his disciples were also endowed with quite a bit of wickedness. The cultivator who spoke was one of evil emperor's disciples. "That's right. If the human realm doesn't want to participate, then please get out in our way. We just wanted to take a look inside the secret zone of the Lost Clan. I don't believe the Lost Clan will begrudge us that." The cultivator from the dark world also joined in. They had come this far. They would not give it up so readily. "Of course, the Lost Clan cannot possibly agree to such request," said the cultivator from the Lost Clan. "If you insist on entering the secret zone of Lost Clan, it will only be over our dead bodies." When the voice fell, the sense of solemnity intensified. The divine light that was shining on the cultivators of the Lost Clan shrouded the boundless space. Phantoms of the ancient gods appeared everywhere in the surrounding areas. Right in front of them, and behind the great cultivators of the Lost Clan, the phantoms of the ancient gods that appeared were like true deities, massive and gigantic, reaching all the way to the sky. An aura of immeasurable horror now bloomed from them. Chapter 2343, Crisis for the Lost Clan. The Lost Clan was ready to move immediately. They had clearly taken their own lives out of the equation. The shadows of the ancient gods shrouded the boundless space, and many ancient deities resonated with one another and united into one entity, blocking out all the lights from the sky. This vast space was now transformed into a realm belonging to those ancient gods. Those ancient gods seemed to come into being through these cultivators from the Lost Clan. Suddenly, their eyes opened, emitting shocking divine light. They looked at those cultivators who moved against them. "If you still wanted to force your way into the secret zone paradise of the Lost Clan, you better get on with it." A voice resounded through the space, and the heavens resonated with the call to battle immediately. A solemn voice was heard, and it seemed to be coming from a time long ago, veiled in an ancient and powerful aura. The cultivators from all the top forces watched with serious expressions. Gone was the relaxed attitude they had before. All of them were from major worlds, some even from the world's top forces, such as the empty mountain cultivators from the empty divine realm, cultivators of the dark court from the dark world, the devil imperial palace of the devil world. They were the kings of each of these worlds. The Lost Clan was not inferior to any of them. They thought that perhaps the dark environment the Lost Clan was forced to contend with was a factor for their resilience. In addition, the ancestors of the Lost Clan must have also been some amazing characters. The Shini continent itself was extraordinary on its own and was never meant to be some ordinary place, even since the beginning of times. But because they were abandoned by the gods, none of these cultivators on the continent were aware of their own ancestry or who they inherited it from. However, each generation of the Lost Clan was filled with genius talents, having allowed them to create a flourishing culture. "Let's get it on," a voice commanded, with the determination of those cultivators. Since this was where they were at, a battle could not be avoided no matter what. With the determination of the Lost Clan, they, as the challengers, had to defeat them before they could enter the secret zone paradise and glimpse upon the secrets of the Lost Clan. Rumble. A terrific sound came out, indicating that the cultivators from the empty divine realm had mobilized. Mighty and gigantic heavenly deities emerged, standing between heaven and earth, surrounded by divine light. Their presence was completely overpowering. Each of those golden divine rays was full of terrifying auras of destruction. Futian looked there and realized that he had seen this ability before. Most of the cultivators from Empty Mountain seemed to have cultivated in this aggressive method. In other directions, the cultivators from the Devil World were also on the move. An overbearing demonic shadow appeared. It was as if the cultivators were summoning the demon gods. Their bodies of the Great Path became terrifying as those demonic bodies were surrounded by demonic glory. The cultivators from the Devil Imperial Palace, including direct disciples of the Devil Emperor. Some of the top figures were all qualified to comprehend the super demonic form in cultivation, thus creating their own demonic form. The tyranny of each person's demonic form would be determined according to different degrees of their comprehension and cultivation ability. But there was no one here who were not powerful existences themselves. None of them were simple. The cultivators from Divine Prefecture and the Dark World were starting their offensive as they gathered an extraordinary amount of power now. For a moment, the coercion in this space was simply terrifying. Many of those second-tier cultivators from Divine Prefecture's top principalities felt as if their hearts were palpitating. The coercion on this side of the world had grown so strong that it was almost unbearable. They did not doubt that they were not even qualified to participate in a battle on this scale. The strongest participants in the battle had all been those existences who had survived the divine tribulation of the Great Path, and quite a few of them had survived the second divine tribulation. Their strength was horrific beyond imagination. Under this kind of authoritative pressure, even those giants who had cultivated to the peak of Renhuang could also feel suffocating oppression. Seeing that the cultivators from all sides were ready to move, those from the Lost Clan did not hesitate any longer. Those ancient godlike figures released an incomparable aura. Like glaring deities, the golden divine brilliance from their eyes contained the might of total ruination. They turned into golden spatial lightning, blasting towards this corner of the sky. Accompanied by the slaughtering of this golden divine light, the space cracked wide open and was torn apart by the force of the golden divine light. If such terrifying power were to land on bodies made of flesh and blood, it would probably squash anyone unfortunate enough to be in its path. The cultivators of the empty divine realm took the lead. Golden figures of heavenly deities moved in unison, directly blasting out billions of fists aurora, sheltering the sky and the sun. The blast radius covered the boundless space, and the entire world was within range of the attacks from the golden divine fists. The golden divine fist was torn apart and pulverized into nothingness. The golden lightning that shot out contained exceptional power, which continued to slaughter its way forward. Like an apocalyptical divine light, everything was shattered in its wake. But that fist aurora was infinite, one after the other, creating many destructive currents, enough to fill that vast space. In the world of cultivation, the destructive power that could be erupted from a cultivator who had survived the divine tribulation of the Great Path was quite astonishing. It was impossible to imagine the force that unleashed when multiple cultivators of such caliber attacked at the same time. Futian and his people did not participate in the battle, nor did those tyrannical attacks move in their direction. This battlefield was actually very extensive, but even so, the entire vast space was within the rippling aftereffects of the fight. No matter where they stood, there was simply no escape. Renhuang Chun walked to the very front to release the starry divine light, erecting a starry light screen around them. However, when those turbulent rogue waves of destruction impacted them, the starry light screen shaking wildly, cracks appearing upon it. Nonetheless, those cracks were quickly repaired as soon as they appeared. But to continue like this, it wouldn't last long before it shattered for good and this space would be torn to pieces. This space won't be able to withstand this kind of attack. It will completely collapse and shatter, Ren Huangqin observed. In the void, those ancient gods exploded with another attack. The ancient gods raised their hands and slammed in the direction of this space. An incomparably somber intention of destruction descended, hovered in the sky above everyone. This attack had covered this corner of the sky, and no one was able to hide from it, as everything was fair game. Break him! An indifferent voice came from the direction of the empty divine realm. Suddenly, all the cultivators seemed to gather together as their great path resonated with one another, forming a supreme battle matrix. A boundless and massive deity appeared, raising his hand to blast out a punch. This punch pierced through heaven and earth, pulverizing the void as the divine light shielded the divine fist, making it invincible. Boom! The gigantic palm prints were penetrated. At the same time, people of all the top forces in other directions were also taking shot in turns. In the direction of the devil realm, a shocking demonic blade slashed down and split the sky open. It smashed through the humongous palm prints that came down and continued moving forward with great momentum, slaughtering into the images of ancient gods that were being conjured up by their opponent. The Lost Clan may be tyrannical, but in the end, it was just a single principality, and the enemies they faced were the ruling powers of all the worlds. Except for the absence of the imperial palace of divine prefecture, all other principalities had dispatched imperial-level representatives here. Under such conditions, it would be very difficult for the Lost Clan to overcome such an alliance of all the worlds. Looking at this battlefield, Futian was a little concerned for the Lost Clan. The Lost Clan could not afford to lose this battle. If they lost, it would be total destruction. They would fight to the death, but those cultivators from the other worlds would not spare any of them either. Chapter 2344. The Depth of the Lost Clan. At the Shuni continent, with the Lost Clan at the center, a petrifying golden glory now permeated and radiated over the entire continent. The continent was colored by a dusky glow that shrouded the whole continent under its brilliance. Looking down from up on high, it was clear that what radiated over the entire continent was, in fact, a gigantic matrix covering the vast expanse of Shuni continent. Within this enormous matrix, splendid pictures and patterns could clearly be made out. In these patterns, one could vaguely see ancient gods standing there, blending into the matrix as if they were part of it. This mammoth of a supermatrix was the result of generational efforts by the ancestors of the Lost Clan. After they had perished, some ancestors chose to integrate the last of their will into the matrix and became part of it. For countless years, this super-colossal matrix had absorbed the will of many ancestors in the Lost Clan. Today, it had become a truly terrifying supermatrix. Relying only on this supermatrix, the Lost Clan was able to stay safe while traveling through the space of the void except in the most dangerous situations. The Shuni continent was not alone. The land of the Lost Clan also lit up with an incomparably splendid divine brilliance. The Lost Clan's secret zone paradise was shrouded with a terrifying golden divine glory, which then gradually disappeared until nothing was left as if it had never been there before. This sight shocked many cultivators, and they remembered the words previously spoken by the cultivator from the Lost Clan. If the Lost Clan were defeated, they would not allow outsiders to enter the Lost Clan's secret zone paradise. They would rather destroy it than allowing these outside cultivators to get what they wanted. Perhaps what the Lost Clan had said was the truth. Inside the battlefield, the sky and the earth shattered, the space collapsed, and terrifying attacks collided. Many cultivators were injured, including some who were considered really powerful. However, that supremely aggressive battle matrix of the rocks also sustained damages with those repeated attacks. Cracks began appearing until they finally collapsed and shattered. For this, the cultivators from all sides paid a heavy price. Some of the powerful cultivators had survived the divine tribulation of the Great Path, but they, too, had been severely injured by it. After the battle matrix of the rocks was broken, both sides were immediately stationed in different positions above the firmament. Major figureheads stood scattered, an astonishing aura bursting from each of them. The atmosphere was so powerful that it was simply chilling. Are there this many top figures in the Lost Clan? There was a slight disturbance in the hearts of these cultivators. The Lost Clan was not facing just one group of forces, but many top powers of the Divine Prefecture and cultivators from other worlds. The lineup was so powerful that it was almost something that no existence could contend with. The fact that the Lost Clan was able to hold them off was, in itself, quite an astonishing feat. This clearly demonstrated the terror the Lost Clan was capable of. After the two sides separated, a cultivator from Divine Prefecture looked at those great cultivators from the Lost Clan across the air and said loud and clear, "The battle matrix collapsed. If you continue to fight, it will probably spell total disaster for the Lost Clan. Are you sure you want to do this?" "Yes, we just wanted to go into the secret zone paradise to see what was so amazing about the Lost Clan's cultivation method. We never thought about eradicating the Lost Clan. There is still time for you to change your minds now. There is no need to engage in such a huge fight," someone else piped up, urging the cultivators from the Lost Clan to give up their resistance and allow them entry into the secret zone paradise to cultivate. "I would also like to reiterate and remind you that the Lost Clan did not come here to be your enemy. Our only goal to come to the original realm was just to cultivate quietly. But if you are insisting on taking such an aggressive stance against us, the Lost Clan will fight you at all costs," the cultivator from the Lost Clan replied. At all costs? All the cultivators directed their gazes toward the man who spoke. Before, they had some reservations and didn't really intend to act on it. But now that they had reached this juncture, if they were to fight an all-out war, how would the Lost Clan contend with that? Does the Lost Clan really want to disappear forever from this world? One cultivator asked in a threatening tone. "Long live the Lost Clan," a solemn voice declared as those words reverberated throughout the world. Then, all those hands clasped together with divine light lingering as that somber voice still ranging throughout the space. On the ground below, that matrix, which was covering the entire Shuni continent, seemed to be coming alive now. Endless rays of glory bloomed outward, rushing straight into the firmament. In an instant, a shining radiance enveloped the entire continent, and a voice seemed to be speaking from an era long forgotten, passing through time and space to awaken those ancestors of theirs. Boom! A terrifying sound was heard, accompanied by the blooming of countless divine lights. Phantoms appeared above the sky as cultivators from the Lost Clan stepped up towards those phantoms as if to merge with them. Using the Matrix to fight? Everyone's eyes narrowed, and only then did they realize that this superb and gigantic Matrix was not only protecting the Shuni continent from invasions, but could also be awakened to fight and produce a certain connection with the cultivators of the Lost Clan. A real ancient deity appeared, standing tall between heaven and earth. It felt extremely massive. He glanced towards the space below, and a horrific golden divine glory beamed out from his brow chakra, which instantly turned into countless golden lightning, smashing down at the cultivators below. "Watch out!" someone cautioned as the cultivators beneath had sensed imminent danger. Suddenly, the group of men began to dodge and evade with incredible speed. But at the same time, in different positions above the sky, ancient gods emerged one after another. The top figures from the Lost Clan had integrated into them, resonating with the Matrix and emitting golden divine light. This was far more terrifying than the battle matrix of the rocks from before. It seemed that this was the truly superb battle matrix, the one that had kept Shuni continent protected. Those golden divine lights were like rays of spatial destruction. The space over which these rays passed was instantly penetrated. Whether it was a solid object or the void, Everything those rays touched was bound to be pierced and destroyed. This was the ability used by the Lost Clan while they were traveling through the dark space to find a way out. It could pierce through the boundless space, and it bore through it effectively. Puff. A Topran Huang was shot by the divine light of space. As his body was pierced by the light, his face paled and was overcome by a look of hopelessness. Then, as clusters of spatial divine glory hitting him at the same time, his body was torn apart and shattered, pulverized into nothingness. He died instantly. How powerful! When Futian saw this, his heart trembled with awe. Above the firmament, ancient gods seemed to be standing watch over them all. The power of those ancestors seemed to have been awakened and integrated into the matrix and echoed the power exuded from the cultivators of the Lost Clan. The resonance erupted with the power of destruction, which was absolutely devastating for cultivators from every side. It seems that they have underestimated the Lost Clan, Emperor Nan observed. The depth of this ancient clan that had traveled through the dark world for countless years was truly frightening. Their strength could not be countered simply by one principality alone. Unless powerful forces, such as Empty Mountain and Devil Imperial Palace, united all of their top cultivators, they could not possibly stand a chance. However, the problem was that only a small number of their best cultivators were dispatched here. Chapter 2345, Sanctuary. Break up the matrix, said a voice from the crowd as cultivators from all major forces converged into one. The cultivators from Empty Mountain were in one camp, while cultivators from the Devil World were in another. With so many cultivators assembling their strengths at the same time, small battle matrices began to form. Cultivators from Empty Mountain took the initiative and attacked. Suddenly, countless fist auroras blasted toward the firmament. The cultivators from the Devil World were even more terrifying. They had summoned infinite demonic blades into being. As the demonic will tossed and rumbled, demon gods appeared to unleash the demonic blades at the same time. Most horrific was that amongst them, an even greater demonic god was gathering these hundreds and thousands of demonic blades into one, smashing it across the void as if intending to split open this corner of the sky. The sight was too shocking to describe. Among the cultivators of the Lost Clan who were in charge of the Matrix, there were clearly a few frightening existences that had survived the second divine tribulation of the Great Path. Now, coupled with the strength of the Matrix, they had erupted with an astonishing offensive prowess. Every cultivator from the top forces in Divine Prefecture was looking for the weak points of this sky-sheltering matrix. They attacked those weak points again and again. In a short few moments, many horrific attacks had already exploded on this battlefield. Furthermore, cultivators from other major forces began to fall one after the other, greatly alarming those from other top forces. Although they had anticipated some danger ahead of the battle, they did not envision it would be this serious. Despite all the forces being combined, they were still caught off guard in such a short period of time. However, these were, after all, forces of the top existence in the world. Even though the Lost Clan had leveraged the amazing strength of this supermatrix, they were still affected by the simultaneous attacks of these powerful cultivators. The ancient gods shook as they were perched above the firmament, and the light screens started to crack. The combined attacks from these cultivators were so terrifying, especially the demonic blades of the cultivators from the Devil World, which contained shocking power that was enough to cleave open the heavens. Futian and the others did not participate in the battle, but they were also in this space since the battlefield had covered just about all the surrounding areas. They had no way to hide under the matrix, so they were affected to a certain extent. However, the cultivators from the Lost Clan were attacking with restraint and did not send any heavy blows in their direction. Therefore, they were still able to hold up their defenses, even though they had to contend with the threat of the aftershocks. But this battlefield was getting a bit too frightening now. Futian thought that it was a waste for those top figures to be slain like this. If they hadn't so greedily grabbed for the secret zone of the Lost Clan, they wouldn't perish today. Crack. A crisp sound was heard at the same time as some ancient gods were being shattered. They were breached in an extremely tyrannical attack. It was the cultivators from the Devil World who broke out of their passive stance first, breaking down an ancient god, which injured several cultivators from the Lost Clan. Suddenly, cultivators from other major positions also began their counterattacks. The Lost Clan took the initiative and attacked first. They leveraged the will of their ancestors to power up the Matrix. But a sustained battle would probably still be highly risky to the Lost Clan and will put them at a disadvantage, said Futian. The cultivators next to him nodded slightly, echoing his sentiment. After all, these people were powerful cultivators in their own rights. Each of them was a peak existence in their own world, in possession of terrifying means and methods. Once they started to unleash their strongest measures against the Lost Clan, defeat was just a matter of time. In this battle, it was highly possible that both sides would suffer major losses, with the Lost Clan facing an even more bleak outcome. However, judging from the resolve and determination of the Lost Clan, even if they were defeated, they would make these challengers pay dearly for their victory. The battle continued. However, at this moment, an extremely overpowering aura suddenly spread from above the firmament. It was not on the battlefield but from outside the battlefield. After that, everyone saw the most radiant and glorious glow sprinkling down on this space, covering the entire Shini continent. Futian and the others were caught by surprise as that infinite glow continued to sprinkle with incredible brilliance. At the same time, an amazing atmosphere permeated from it. Someone is coming, Futian said. Under that endless glow, a group of ethereal figures emerged. This group of cultivators was surrounded by extremely dazzling divine light. Their leader was a woman that resembled a goddess. She had an incomparable radiance, and her beauty was breathtaking. Her noble presence compelled everyone to lower their eyes. Those cultivators who were in the midst of fighting also saw the group that had just descended upon them. Gradually, many people stopped fighting, especially those from Divine Prefecture who had been the first to disengage in battle. Quite a few of them put their hands together and saluted, saying, "Greetings to your Royal Highness the Princess." It turned out that this group of newcomers were cultivators from Donghuang Imperial Palace in the Divine Prefecture. The stunning woman in the lead was Princess Donghuang, who had arrived in person. This was the first time Futian had seen her in 20-some years. This princess seemed to always make her appearance at the most critical moment. He wondered what had brought Princess Donghuang here. Although the cultivators of the Devil World and the Empty Divine Realm were not in the same camp as the Imperial Palace of Divine Prefecture, they had to pay their respects now that the ruler of the Divine Prefecture was here. After all, in principle, the original realm belonged to the Divine Prefecture, and where they stood now was under the jurisdiction of the Divine Prefecture. As all the major cultivators stopped their offensives, the cultivators from the Lost Clan, likewise, retracted their aura and did not continue fighting. They seemed to know who had arrived. After they came to the original realm, they had made some inquiries about the original realm as well as the Divine Prefecture. It was obvious that they knew the master of Divine Prefecture had descended upon them. The ruler of Divine Prefecture, Donghuang Imperial Palace, could very possibly be the one who determines the fate of the Lost Clan. An elder from the Lost Clan bowing slightly and said, "The Lost Clan has been in exile since time immemorial. Now that we have come upon the land of the original realm under the rule of Divine Prefecture, we hope the Imperial Palace will forgive us for our intrusion." Princess Donghuang looked at the cultivators from the Lost Clan below and nodded slightly. Many were surprised when they beheld this sight. They could detect something from Princess Donghuang's attitude towards the Lost Clan. If she wanted to protect the Lost Clan, things would become much thornier. Salutations to Princess Donghuang, from cultivators of the human realm. The person heading the congregation of the human realm smiled as he greeted the princess. "All of you from the human realm welcome," Princess Donghuang responded. The cultivator from the human realm continued, "My master has never forgotten about Donghuang the Elder. Is everything well with the great emperor?" "Thank you, Elder. My father has been cultivating diligently and has been thinking of you often, Elder." The two chatted casually like good friends but were, in fact, not as familiar with each other as they appear to be. "If opportunity allows, we would like to go to the Imperial Palace to greet Donghuang the Great personally." "Very well." Princess Donghuang nodded slightly, appearing quite at ease. She then surveyed the crowd and said, "This continent has traveled through the darkness until it came upon the land of the original realm. Since it is here now, it is considered part of the original realm. From now on, the Shinny continent will also be a member of the 3,000 realms of the Great Path in the original realm. It will be managed under the jurisdiction of the Lost Clan as a part of the original realm, belonging to Divine Prefecture under the command of the Imperial Palace. Lost Clan, are you willing to accept these conditions? These words from Princess Donghuang stunned everyone who had heard them, and many cultivators changed their expression. They clearly understood that this was Princess Donghuang giving the Lost Clan a chance to survive. By asking the Lost Clan to accept the authority of Donghuang Imperial Palace as a part of the Divine Prefecture under the jurisdiction of the Imperial Palace, Donghuang Imperial Palace may then legitimize its involvement in the whole affair. This was giving the Lost Clan a chance to make a choice. Of course, the Lost Clan was free to refuse. But in that scenario, it was very possible that the Imperial Palace from Divine Prefecture would choose not to intercede. After all, for Donghuang the Great to dominate all of Divine Prefecture, his concerns had to be much broader, and he would never involve the Imperial Palace in an all-out battle with several other major worlds on behalf of some irrelevant clans. Naturally, the finer points of this reasoning were not lost on the Lost Clan. Therefore, after hearing the pronouncements from Princess Donghuang, the elder of the Lost Clan hesitated only for a moment before he made a decision. Determination flashed through his eyes as he replied, "The Lost Clan is willing to submit to Donghuang Imperial Palace and accept the command of the Imperial Palace. From now on, we shall be a part of the 3,000 realms of the Great Path in the original realm." When they heard the reply from the Lost Clan, the cultivators from other forces were not thrilled, to say the least. Under such circumstances, it was obvious that Donghuang Imperial Palace would be involved. If so, it would be extremely difficult to move against the Lost Clan again, especially for principalities from the Divine Prefecture. Princess Donghuang surveyed the crowd around her slowly and said, "All the forces from Divine Prefecture, hear me well. Now that the Lost Clan belongs to Divine Prefecture and has accepted the command of our Imperial Palace, please do not treat the Lost Clan as a foreign invading force. If opportunities allow in the future, you should befriend one another and learn together." Indeed, Princess Donghuang intervened with her influence, and she had started with the principalities from Divine Prefecture first. Many from the top forces in Divine Prefecture appeared pensive as their eyes flickered and their brains were thinking hard. They found the current circumstance a little hard to swallow, especially those who had lost cultivators in the previous violent exchanges with the Lost Clan. They had not had the chance to settle these scores before they were asked to drop the matter altogether and get along with the Lost Clan. Then, had those cultivators who had perished died in vain? "Princess, my brothers in arms fell at the hands of the Lost Clan. Where is our justice?" a cultivator asked. He was the cultivator of the ancient God Clan. He asked his question bluntly without backing down, not scared even in the face of the Imperial Palace. Princess Donghuang looked at the cultivator and calmly responded, "After this confrontation settles down, if you still ache to settle the score, I will allow you to fight with the Lost Clan. The Imperial Palace will not get between the two of you over personal grievances." The eyes of that cultivator narrowed. She would allow them to fight with the Lost Clan? On the Shinny continent, with the tyrannical power displayed by the Lost Clan, even the ancient God Clan was an unlikely contender to take them on alone. The difference in power was simply too great. The other side was a major clan made possible by the energy of an entire continent. However, unless but even if they were greatly displeased in their hearts, they could only endure in silence, suffocating on those unspoken words. One glance at Princess Donghuang revealed that the princess was no longer a young lass anymore. After many years of cultivation, she had become even more magnificent and ravishing. Aside from her status and position, she was a peerless empress in her own right. "Since the princess said so, we will have no choice but to put it aside for now," the person responded with a bit of displeasure in his voice. Even facing Princess Donghuang, he was not overly servile. After all, they were not under the direct jurisdiction of the Imperial Palace, and the Imperial Palace could not do much to them. If the Imperial Palace were to come down on them too aggressively, it would risk total and utter alienation. Princess Donghuang didn't seem to display the slightest emotion. She nodded nonchalantly, haughty and indifferent. She glanced at the cultivators from the other worlds and said, "Once upon a time, In a battle long ago, the original realm came under the jurisdiction of Divine Prefecture. Now that changes are upon the original realm, which was why the Divine Prefecture did not object to your presence here, though you were uninvited. As the Lost Clan had recognized and submitted under the authority of the Imperial Palace, accepting its command, everyone, please feel free to disengage and take your leave. Once the Lost Clan agreed to assimilate, then the Imperial Palace of the Divine Prefecture may directly intercede on its behalf, preventing the others from fighting against the Lost Clan. Princess Dongwang, should this matter be forgotten just like this? A cold voice queried, and it was a top cultivator from the Dark World, whose tone was tinged with a few degrees of iciness. They had already declared war and broken down the matrix of the Lost Clan. If they continued with this momentum, they would surely take down the Lost Clan sooner rather than later. At this time, the Imperial Palace from Divine Prefecture unexpectedly interfered to prevent the battle from continuing. Since the Lost Clan has now submitted to Imperial Palace, the Imperial Palace will ask you to stop fighting with the Lost Clan. If you refuse to let this go, you should know that we don't mind taking this as far as it needs to go, Princess Dongwang replied. Divine generals stood guard behind her, creating a frightening atmosphere. Once again, Yi Futian saw Spear Emperor do you. However, this divine general stood behind several other people and didn't seem to occupy too conspicuous a position. Obviously, because of the involvement of peak cultivators from several worlds this time, the Imperial Palace had dispatched a much more powerful delegation than before. For a time, the space was completely silent, as all the cultivators remained hushed. The Lost Clan was already very powerful on its own, and these cultivators, with great difficulties, had paid a heavy price for breaking down their defenses. Now, the top forces from Divine Prefecture would not continue to fight against the Lost Clan and may even fight for them in this latest reversal of fortunes. As long as Princess Donghuang was around, it would be impossible for the forces of these principalities from Divine Prefecture to get involved further. They had lost considerable strength on their side, but the other side was now being backed up by the supreme power that belonged to Donghuang Imperial Palace. If the battle continued under these conditions, they would most likely suffer losses and have no chance to take down the Lost Clan. Suddenly there was a voice coming out of this silent space, and a cultivator from the human realm said, "The Lost Clan, a major clan in the world of cultivation, has not done anything wrong. If you refuse to give up and insisted on persecuting the Lost Clan, the human realm will not stand idly by." This voice reverberated in the quiet space. The power between Divine Prefecture, the human realm, and the Lost Clan was enough to stymie any hopes for the other worlds to vanquish the Lost Clan. But to give it up just like that seemed rather anticlimactic and unsatisfying. The human realm is indeed the agent of righteousness. How come you didn't intervene and allied with the Lost Clan earlier? A cultivator from the Dark World commented. His words dripped with thick sarcasm, full of unsaid accusations. It seemed that when the Imperial Palace of Divine Prefecture had arrived, the human realm was much more willing to stand beside the Imperial Palace. Together, they had completely cut off any recourses the Dark World may have. Since the Imperial Palace of Divine Prefecture has taken a stance, then we will drop this matter for the time being and will not make further demands on the Lost Clan. A cultivator from the empty divine realm piped up to show that they were willing to let it go. In this case, what choice do they really have but to call it quits? However, now that the original realm is going through these changes, I'm sure Donghuang the Great must know very well that while we can agree not to touch the Lost Clan, the control of the original realm should be relinquished now. The turbulence in the original realm means that it shouldn't no longer be under the control of any single entity. Everyone was surprised because none of them expected the empty divine realm to make a statement of this nature. The Imperial Palace of Divine Prefecture had always regarded itself as the master of the original realm, and now it was time for a change. This was a thought shared by cultivators from the Dark World as well as the Devil World, and their attention now fixed solely on Princess Donghuang. Chapter 2347, Incoming Storm. Control over the original realm? Princess Donghuang looked at the cultivators from various worlds. Although the original realm was still ruled over by the Divine Prefecture in name, in reality, the current huge changes in the realm were known by all the cultivators from various worlds. Did they truly consider the original realm to be the territory of the divine prefecture? If they truly did consider it to be so, beside causing a commotion in the original realm, they would need the permission of the divine prefecture to even step foot into it. Clearly, the various forces no longer had their reservations. Since the original realm was still considered to be under the jurisdiction of the divine prefecture in name, the divine prefecture would not let it go no matter what happened to it. This appeared to be meaningless, but it was crucial. At the end of the day, the divine prefecture had the moral high ground, and the forces of the various worlds were at a disadvantage on this front. Princess Donghuang declared, "The jurisdiction of the original realm has already been determined for centuries. More than 20 years ago, a huge war erupted in the original realm, and the divine prefecture still emerged victorious. Now, the divine prefecture doesn't want to dwell on this matter. The original realm belonged to the divine prefecture in the past, and will remain so for the future." Her voice was arrogant and authoritative. The reality that the original realm belonged to the divine prefecture was unshakable and would remain unchanged for eternity. "I heard that the original realm already has a ruler. The cultivators of the 3,000 realms of the Great Path all pledged their allegiance to this new ruler. The influence of the divine prefecture imperial palace is most likely not as strong as his," a cultivator of the dark world provoked with a sinister smile. The various cultivators naturally knew who he was referring to. Everyone knew that the current direct ruler of the original realm was Futian, the college chief of the Heavenly Mandate Academy. He was also the palace lord of Ziwei Imperial Palace. Futian was considered the ruler of the original realm by its members. He also fought for the original realm. Countless cultivators of the 3,000 realms of the Great Path acknowledged him and the Heavenly Mandate Academy. In contrast, the Divine Prefecture Imperial Palace had limited influence over the 3,000 realms of the Great Path. Its influence was certainly not as strong as Futian's. Futian, the college chief of the Heavenly Mandate Academy, has unified the various forces of the 3,000 realms of the Great Path and fights for their sake. He protects the cultivators of the original realm and rules over the original realm on behalf of the Divine Prefecture Imperial Palace. The Imperial Palace believes he has done superbly. Are there any problems with that?" replied Princess Donghuang as she stared indifferently at the cultivator of the dark world. She claimed that Futian was ruling over the original realm on behalf of the Divine Prefecture Imperial Palace, and that Futian and the Heavenly Mandate Academy were under their jurisdiction. There was no issue with her statement. However, what did Futian think about this? Many people looked at Futian. Yet, Futian's expression remained the same as before, showing no changes. They could not get a read on him. Was he ruling over the original realm on behalf of the Divine Prefecture Imperial Palace? Futian never thought of it that way before. The Imperial Palace was its own entity. However, the original realm was the place where he grew up and cultivated. He had emotional attachments to the Heavenly Mandate Academy and the 3,000 realms of the Great Path. He unified the lands of the original realm in the hopes that they would prosper and survive through this chaotic era instead of disintegrating and having countless lives lost to the chaos. While he was doing so, the Divine Prefecture Imperial Palace had not interfered at all. In terms of a sense of belonging, he naturally had none for the Divine Prefecture Imperial Palace. Moreover, he was still not clear about the matters back then. Donghuang the Great might even be his enemy. However, he did not leap out to deny Princess Donghuang's words. The Heavenly Mandate Academy ruled over the original realm by relying on Master's deterrence to survive in this chaotic world. Otherwise, many forces would have long attacked them. They still needed the backing of the Divine Prefecture Imperial Palace. Forsaking the Divine Prefecture Imperial Palace and proclaiming himself a ruler now? That would be suicide. As for the cultivators around Futian, they all had their own thoughts. Many of them had high expectations for Futian. They even believed that Futian would walk the path to the top in the future and make the original realm an independent world. However, this path would certainly be full of thorns. How many would be buried along the way? For Futian, his most important goal currently was further developing himself. "There is no problem," the cultivator of the dark world said as he looked at Princess Donghuang. Since the Divine Prefecture does not wish to relinquish control of the original realm and wishes to meddle in the affairs of the Lost Clan, then we have no choice but to return and inform the Great Emperor and ask him to open the door of darkness. When that happens, I hope the Divine Prefecture will not regret this." As he said this, he looked at the cultivators of the Empty Mountain as well as the Devil World and said, "There is a prophecy that claims that the changes to the worlds will begin with the original realm. Does the Evil Emperor and the Devil Emperor have no thoughts about this?" There seem to be too few members from the Devil World here today. Among the cultivators of the various worlds, the members of the Devil World were the fewest in numbers. Only a group of them had come to the original realm. Aside from the Divine Prefecture, the Dark World was the second largest group. Cultivators from a large number of their forces kept arriving. Now, the cultivator of the Dark World was threatening to open the door of darkness, most likely with the intention to send a large number of cultivators of the Dark World to the original realm. If that were to happen, the original realm would change completely. No one knew what the outcome would be. "We will naturally return to inform the Evil Emperor about this," a cultivator from the Empty Divine Realm said. "Since the Divine Prefecture is still so domineering, then let's wait and see." Attacking the Lost Clan today made the cultivators of the Empty Divine Realm feel that they were lacking in number. Recently, many relics appeared in the original realm. They were all relics of the ancient era. Even the shiny continent that was floating among the chaos of the void had appeared. One could imagine how huge a change was occurring in the original realm. The prophecy might possibly come true. Under such circumstances, the various great emperors would certainly send large armies over by opening the doors connected to the original realm. The cultivators of the Devil World also revealed pondering looks. From the looks of it, they also needed to return to inform the Devil Emperor. If the prophecy came true, the original realm might continue to have huge changes. For now, no one knew what changes would occur in the future. Yet, if there were too few members of the Devil World present here, they would be at a disadvantage. When Princess Donghuang heard their words, her expression turned cold and indifferent. 3 to 4 centuries ago, the original realm had already faced such a storm. However, the turmoil back then was not even on the scale of what she was seeing now. If it was as the cultivators of the various major forces had said, the next storm in the original realm would be unprecedented. The various worlds might choose the original realm to be the battlefield for their conflict. Futian's facial expression was the ugliest of them all. Now, he ruled over the original realm and protected the 3,000 realms of the Great Path. If what the other parties said were true, the original realm would undoubtedly be where the forces of the other worlds faced off against each other. The original realm would become a battlefield. For the members here, this was practically a catastrophe. No one knew what would happen then. Crucially, all of this was happening too fast. The appearance of the Lost Clan had accelerated this change. His cultivation was still not strong enough. Without having reached the peak of the Renhuang Plain, it was difficult for him to handle these changes. When Futian thought of this, he was somewhat concerned. The cultivators of various forces of the Divine Prefecture all had their own agendas. They were not united with the Divine Prefecture Imperial Palace. If the original realm completely fell into chaos, they would instead seize the opportunity to enrich themselves. Chapter 2348. The storm has settled temporarily. In the quiet space, Princess Donghuang glanced around at the crowd. Were they threatening the Divine Prefecture? However, the situation in the original realm had now changed. An ancient continent like the Shiny continent had actually appeared out of thin air. The cultivators of various worlds couldn't sit there and do nothing. After all, before this, the Lost Clan of the Shiny continent had displayed terrifying combat ability. On top of that, many other relics had appeared before this. How many secrets were waiting to be explored in the original realm now? The changes of the worlds would begin with the original realm. The various worlds would believe this prophecy to have come true, and they would keep sending their cultivators over to the original realm. The various worlds had been at peace for countless years. Now, they would soon choose the original realm as the battlefield for their conflict. It seemed to be pushed by the general trend of events and would most likely be unchangeable. "Then, we shall wait and see," declared Princess Donghuang as she swept a glance over the crowd. If the various worlds wanted to lead their armies over here, then the divine prefecture would answer with their own. This fight was inevitable. Everything that happened today was originally targeted at the Lost Clan. However, no one imagined that it would escalate to such a situation. It appeared that the various worlds would invade the original realm and contest over it. Such a shocking development had been stirred up. Futian secretly sighed. From the looks of it, the original realm becoming a battlefield was already inevitable. He had no means of stopping such a development. If that is the case, farewell, the cultivator of the Dark World said. Then, he left with the other cultivators. The cultivators of the forces of the empty divine realm, the devil world, and the other worlds also left the region of the Lost Clan. When they left, their figures bore frightening auras. The fires of war had been lit. The various forces left very quickly. Only the cultivators of the Divine Prefecture Imperial Palace, the Heavenly Mandate Academy, as well as the human realm remained and had yet to leave. The elder of the Lost Clan bowed slightly at Princess Donghuang and said, Princess, many thanks for helping us get out of that predicament. The Lost Clan is grateful. Although the Lost Clan were prepared to face anything, if the battle were to truly break out, they would most likely face annihilation. After all, the other party was the allied forces of the various worlds. Even though their Lost Clan was powerful, it would still be difficult for them to stand against such a force. You have seen everything. The armies of the various worlds will be coming. The doors of the original realm will be completely opened. The Shini continent has now come to the original realm. You are now part of it and under the jurisdiction of the Divine Prefecture. You will not be able to sit out of this. If there is a war, I hope that the Lost Clan will also lend their aid, said Princess Donghuang as she glanced at the cultivators of the Lost Clan. The Lost Clan had to play their part since they had chosen to submit to the authority of the Divine Prefecture. If the Divine Prefecture engaged in war with the other worlds, then the Lost Clan needed to obey the orders from the Divine Prefecture Imperial Palace. Since our clan has agreed to your request, we will certainly keep our promise. We won't sit idly and do nothing, declared the elder of the Lost Clan. Moreover, our clan has lost the freedom to stay away from this conflict. The various worlds had come here to attack the Lost Clan. Even if the Lost Clan intended to stay out of the conflict, would the cultivators from the various worlds possibly agree to that? They would most likely still attack the Lost Clan after they managed to defeat the army of the Divine Prefecture. Princess, we've enraged the various worlds this time around. If they join forces to attack the Divine Prefecture, we'll most likely face a huge crisis, a cultivator from the ancient God Clan said while looking at Princess Donghuang. The cultivators who left the place were people from the Dark World, the empty Divine Realm, and the Devil World. Even during the previous war, the cultivators from the Divine Prefecture had not faced such a situation. If the other three major worlds decided to declare war on the Divine Prefecture, the latter had no chance of winning. Princess Donghuang looked at the speaker and said, the other three major worlds each have their own agendas. They might not join forces. If they really do, I hope all of you can contribute to defeating them. Right now, the original realm has undergone many changes. All of you should return to the Divine Prefecture first and summon cultivators from your respective clans to come here. Otherwise, if anything were to happen in the original realm, you might have a difficult time handling the situation. The cultivators of the Divine Prefecture were of different minds when they heard Princess Donghuang's order. However, on the surface, everyone nodded in agreement. They said, since that's the case, we'll take our leave here. Princess Donghuang nodded. The cultivators of the Divine Prefecture gradually left the place. Quite a lot of cultivators gave the cultivators of the Lost Clan a cold glance before they left. They were somewhat unsatisfied with what happened today. However, they couldn't do anything given the current situation. Therefore, they could only play by the ear from now on. After the cultivators of the Divine Prefecture left, Princess Donghuang looked at Futian. Futian was also staring at her. It was not their first time meeting each other. They met once back in the city of Qingzhou. They were both youths at that time. However, back then, one of them was exalted while the other was still a commoner. They weren't even people of the same status. Now, Futian was almost at the same strata as this princess of the Divine Prefecture. Greetings, princess. Many thanks for giving me the divine item as a present in the past. said Futian as he bowed slightly. Regardless of how their relationship would turn out in the future, it was undeniable that Princess Donghuang was the one who saved him when he was surrounded by various forces 20 years ago. The divine item that Princess Donghuang gifted him allowed him to go to the divine prefecture. Back then, you defeated the cultivators from the dark world and the empty divine realm. The item was a reward for you. You don't have to thank me for it, explained Princess Donghuang. Now, you control the forces in the original realm. The Imperial Palace has also heard of your achievements. In the future, if war were to erupt in the original realm, I hope you'll try your best to protect the place. Understood, Futian responded. It's just that the current original realm is still weak. We don't have any cultivators who have survived the second tribulation of the Great Path. If the cultivators from the various worlds were to attack us, I'm afraid that the forces in the original realm are no match for them. When that time comes, I hope the Divine Prefecture Imperial Palace will send aid to hold the fort. Compared to most forces in the Divine Prefecture, the original realm represented by the Heavenly Mandate Academy was already a superpower. However, if the various worlds sent their top cultivators over, the Heavenly Mandate Academy that lacked existences who had survived the second tribulation would appear somewhat lackluster. Princess Donghuang lowered her head and glanced at Futian down below. Was he trying to set conditions with her? I will make my own arrangements, answered Princess Donghuang indifferently. There will be a storm in the original realm. I will return to the Imperial Palace. Farewell, Princess, said Futian as he bowed slightly. Princess Donghuang turned to leave. The cultivators of the human realm said, Princess, we will see you off. As they said this, their figures dashed up into the sky and left with Princess Donghuang's entourage. Only the cultivators of the Lost Clan and the cultivators of the Heavenly Mandate Academy were left. The elder of the Lost Clan glanced at Futian and said, Ren Huangyi, many thanks for your help today. I haven't done anything worthy of your thanks, said Futian as he shook his head. Ren Huangyi is benevolent. If you had attacked with the other cultivators before this, the battle matrix of the rocks would have fallen, the elder said. Our Lost Clan has no means of repaying this favor. Ren Huangyi, please come in and be our guest. That won't be necessary, said Futian as he shook his head. Soon, there will be a huge change in the original realm. I need to return to prepare. I fear that there will be a bloodbath in the future. The elder of the Lost Clan was stunned. He looked at Futian and then nodded his head and said, If that is the case, we will not delay you any longer. Ren Huangyi, you must come visit us when you have the chance. Gladly, replied Futian, as he saluted the cultivators of the Lost Clan with his fists. He then left with the cultivators of the Heavenly Mandate Academy. They did not stay with the Lost Clan. As they watched Futian leaving, the cultivators of the Lost Clan gathered together. They stared at his silhouette as it disappeared from view and said, It appears that this man is truly selfless. With the abilities he displayed, he doesn't need to covet the cultivation techniques of the Lost Clan. Prior to this, he has already inherited the abilities of several great emperors, said the elder of the Lost Clan. He clearly had a certain level of understanding of Futian. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.